I wanted to let you know that. Thank you.
Because the email's the same, because it should be forwarded to my home email. Tom, is Mike Shaw here for?
Okay. I'm going to call the April 7th, 2010 Scarborough Town Council meeting to order. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And can we have the roll call, please?
Councilor Alquist.
Here.
Councilor Holbrook.
Here.
Councilor Babine.
Present.
Councilor DeAndrea.
Here.
Councilor Wood.
Here.
Councilor Roy.
Here.
Council Chair Rancourt.
Here. And we are about to go to general public comments. I'd like to make a couple of comments. I had a copy of an email from a concerned citizen who mentioned at the last meeting, it was an oversight, that we didn't ask for comments from the public at each item on the agenda, and I want to make sure, I think I've been remiss in that myself, and I'm going to make sure that I do it in the future, and especially tonight, but I want to also tell people that if you make comments during this open period to make comments for the general public, if you want to make a comment on the agenda item, it needs to be new or something that you haven't said before that is pertinent to the issue. So with that said, I'm going to open general public comments. Would anyone like to speak this evening?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Dave Green. I live at 135 Beach Ridge Road. I was one of the victims, and this is, Madam Chairman, not your fault, and neither was it Judy Roy's. It was an oversight on everybody's part. But this council held a public meeting on items to be addressed by the public, and no public address was allowed. Now, I don't know what this council does with that, but you need to fix that, because I was not allowed to speak. And I did send an email to each councilor, all right? Madam Chairman, if I may, I'm going to name names.
That's okay.
I'll exclude you. I know you've been on vacation and you were not here. Councilor Roy sent me an email regarding my concerns about that meeting. Councilor Holbrook sent me one, and so did Councilor Wood. The rest of the councilors on this council did not have the courtesy to send me anything. Now, I did not get my 3 minutes last month to speak on the RF zone item, which I specifically came down here to speak on. Okay? So, I took the courtesy to send everybody an email and say, these are my concerns, okay? Because the first concern was that this council was violating state law, which I didn't really want to happen. And the town planner was up here, and he got to speak, and I didn't get to speak after him. So I couldn't rebut anything he had to say. But if you go read what the State Department of Agriculture statutes say, you cannot take and have a public hearing here without first having the notice 90 days in advance to the Department of Agriculture. Now, it's plain as day. You don't have to be a rocket science to read that. And I do believe that you were taken down a path last month. It's not, the state has 90 days to respond. You have to have it up there 90 days in advance, so that when you take it up 90 days later, the state, if they wish to reply, their reply will be here. All right? If the state doesn't choose to reply, so be it. I can live with that. But as far as I'm concerned, with what I read in the state law, and you're free to go read it yourself, please go read it yourself. Don't rely on Mr. Bacon's interpretation of it. The notice was supposed to go to the Department of Agriculture 90 days in advance of the first public hearing, of which was last month, March 17th, of which there was no public hearing, so I don't know if you've negated that or not. I don't care, and that's maneuvering, or whatever. But the state hasn't been notified to have their input to what this town wants to do. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I don't know the state's going to say there's anything bad with what the town wants to do. But give them that opportunity. They're the people that have the jurisdiction. I mean, it's nice the town of Scarborough can make rules and regulations, but you still got to operate under state law. And the state law says you will notify them 90 days prior to any public hearing on changes to the farming zone. It's as simple as that. Read it. Read it yourself. Don't rely on Mr. Bacon, because I don't believe Mr. Bacon's interpretation is correct. All right? I'll leave it at that. Now I'm back to trying to speak last month on the RF zone changes. And I'm running out of time. First of all, you people ought to be ashamed of yourselves, because one thing big in the RF, it also entitles the RFM zone, rural residential manufactured homes. That was your out 20 years ago to affordable housing. And there's people in this town now trying to do affordable housing for people that make $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year, and they can't do it. So what did this town do? They made an RFM zone, and that is a crock. First of all, you made the RFM zones in zones that nobody that owned the property in those zones had anything for sale. There was nothing for sale. So how do you get an affordable house in a zone that there's no land for sale? Second of all, I'm going to tell you all, by your own comprehensive plan, where do you want the growth to go? Where do you want the growth to go?
Mr. Green, I have given you 6 minutes to make up for last month, so I'm going to have to ask you to close it up as quickly as you can.
It's fine, I'm done, I'll be back.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Please take advantage.
Good evening. My name is Dave Bouffard. I live at 7 Carterbrook Drive. A couple of weeks ago, I sent all of you counselors an email. Thank you to those who responded to that. I've written down some comments and thoughts that I'd like to read to you. From 1997 to 2007, we experienced an unprecedented economic boom. Local, state, and federal governments spent money like drunken sailors. Revenues were rising almost faster than they could spend it. Now we're in an economic recession, yet some are still addicted to spending more than they or the taxpayers are able to afford. The federal deficit is $12 trillion and rising. The state legislature wants the taxpayers to pay $85 million for another bond package to fix roads and bridges and buy an abandoned railroad. Here in Scarborough, we are faced with another budget proposal that calls for higher property taxes. This madness must stop. Last year, the municipal employees volunteered to take a pay freeze to help balance the budget. The teachers would not. This year, the municipal employees again offered to take a pay freeze. The teachers refuse. During difficult economic times, everyone should do their part. You, the council, have the power and the moral authority to show fiscal responsibility. I encourage you to do the right thing and give us a budget that does not include a tax increase. You can do it. It just takes a little courage. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buffard. Anyone else?
Bruce Bell, 13 West Beach Ridge Road, Scarborough. I want to talk about the same subject that the last gentleman just talked about, and that's the budget that you people are just about to work on, I hope, very hard. If you look at the town and you look at the open space that's being supported not by land trusts, not by business, but by private owners, a major portion of the land in the town of Scarborough that is sizable land, open space, is owned by people who are long-term residents. And by far, the largest volume of these taxpayers are retired. They haven't seen a wage increase. They didn't see one last year. They aren't going to see one this year. In fact, their lovely insurance has gone up. So, for no increase, they're being obligated to pay more. And if any one of you are a prescription user, you'll find out what it's like, what the difference in cost in the last 2 years for prescriptions have been, even the same prescriptions that these elderly people are having to take just to live. I strongly encourage you to take a good look at this year's budget, and I also am asking for you to hold the line with no tax increase. It's going to be difficult. I feel badly that you people are going to be saddled with the responsibility of making those major decisions when others chose to take as much as $700,000 worth of additional revenue, plug it into their budgets, but the bottom line that they're coming and asking you for is the same amount of money. I think that $1.6 million increase is exorbitant. If you look at that budget, there are staff level positions that will equal double what teachers are getting. I think somebody needs to take a real good look at the line item, not only of that budget, but also the municipal side, and you choose for yourself what you feel you need to do. But my comment to you is, please, for the retired community that don't come out and don't want to speak, please hold the line. I ask you for a no tax increase this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes. On another subject? Thank you.
I was here last month, and I was probably the most unpopular speaker in the room because apparently the school board had sent a lot of school moms down here to tell you people, we need more money, more money, more money. And like I said last month, I concur with Mr. Bell. I'm old Scarborough. I didn't move here 3 years ago. I've lived here my whole life. And I'm getting to the point that I can't afford it anymore. All right? And I'm sitting on property, and if you want a housing development out there, great. That'll be your prerogative. Not going to be mine, because it'll be over my dead body. But I'm unfortunately hitting the grave quick, okay? please, please, I understand, it's not an easy job to juggle any budget. And I said last month, if you need to rob Peter to pay Paul a little bit, I'm sure. I'm not the shell answer man, okay? I can't go to the highway department's budget, I can't go to the police department budget, I can't go to the fire department budget and go in there and find all the little things that are there. And I don't expect that any of you here can either. But I think we all know they're there. And if we want to keep the standard for the schools at a certain level, I'm all for that. There's nothing better than teaching our kids, okay? And I'm the first one down here to tell you that. But you need to do it, and you need to take a hard look at what's going to happen to the poor people uptown. And they're not all down here, like Mr. Bell said, down here squawking and pleading and all that. I will, but a lot of people won't, okay? Not everybody wants to see their taxes go up in this town, come on. It's like saying, do you want another $100 added onto your credit card bill every month? I don't think so. So that's kind of where we're at. And I ask you all, please, take a hard look. There are things that can be cut. And if you cut it here, can you add it there? Great. But it would be lovely, honestly, lovely to see it come in at zero. Because I really can't afford a tax increase this year. Nobody raised my wages this year. I'm sorry, I'm self-employed. I have to buy insurance and a whole 9 yards like everybody else, the same old sob story. But please, take a close look at it and keep it as low as you can, honestly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Anyone else wish to speak this evening? Mr. Sullivan?
Richard Sullivan, 1 Sullivan Farm Road, Scarborough. I'm here to address the council on the budget. I served 3 years on the Finance Committee. I know that there's things that are in there that you are able to cut and manage so that our tax rate isn't what we've been seeing in the papers. Now, as you all know, the federal government is digging themselves a deep hole financially. The state has done it. You see, and everybody can see it. It's in the papers every day. I don't want to see this town do it. And we can't keep shifting the burden onto the property taxpayer, put the tax burden onto the property owners. And if you do own any large pieces of property, over a 4%, and some, as it gets worse and worse, it's going to be worse next year. So as the taxes keep going up, I can see that people are going to say, geez, I can't afford to retire in this town. I'm going to have to move somewhere else to retire. I don't want to do that. I've lived here all my life. My father has, my grandfather has. I heard a lot of people get up here and address the council last week on the school budget. And a lot of them said, well, I've lived here 5 years, 15 years. That's not an issue. I'm just saying there's a lot of us that want to live here and die here. And live here our entire lives, bring our children up here and have a future for them to live in this town. And it's becoming not possible. And the property taxes have a big play in that. Good school, I like to see a good school. And we all want good fire service, good police service, rescue, public works. That's all stuff that's needed. I heard a woman talk about broken roads. Yeah, we need roads repaired too. It's all necessary. When times were good, the state and even this town enacted programs because times are good. Now times are bad, and we're scurrying to find where we're going to pay for how we're going to pay for these programs. There's policies in the future that are going to be changed. And without the stimulus money coming next year, the state's going to have the same, even worse problem next year. So I'm just saying, I'm not lecturing you, I'm just saying you need to go back over that budget again and make it more responsible, or it's going to be even tougher next year. A lot tougher next year without stimulus coming through. Thank you.
Mr. Sullivan. Anyone else? That's it for this evening? Thank you. I just want to take a few minutes. I don't usually do this, but I do want to say, to give credit to our Finance Committee, that they are still in the process of working on their budget. Nothing has been finalized at this point. So, and they are working very hard indeed on the budget, and will continue to do so. So, have no fear. Nothing is in the final stages for presentation yet. Also,
Madam Chair?
yes.
I did want to ask if there could be a point of clarification. One citizen did mention that, because I think it needs to be fairly assessed, mentioned that the town employees are foregoing or are willing to forego a pay raise this year, and that the schools are asking for a pay increase, and that is not an accurate statement. Both the town and the school employees are currently budgeted for a pay increase, and I think that needs to be understood.
I'm sorry, I can't take, this isn't a colloquy, so. No, sorry. Okay, adjustments, may I have a motion on the minutes, please?
Move approval?
Second. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Adjustments to the agenda.
Yes,
Councilor Wood.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to request a suspension of the rules to add a item to tonight's agenda.
Yes?
In front of you, I'll read it for the public. Order number 1038, act on the request from the town manager to transfer and appropriate the sum of $136,000 from the Public Works Transportation Capital Improvement Projects in fiscal year 2008, which was bonded for the Broadturn Road project as follows: a King Street drainage and street reconstruction project for $41,000, and B, Pine Point Beach access project for $95,000.
Thank you, and we need to have a vote as to whether you're willing to suspend the rules. Does that have to be a roll call, or is that just
No.
majority? Okay, all those in favor of suspending the rules and adding that item? Opposed? None. Thank you, so we will
Thank
be
you, Madam
adding
Chair.
that item to the agenda.
Would you like some clarifying where that will appear on the agenda? Just
Yeah,
so you know when
please.
to take that up?
Yes, I'm sorry. I would also request that the council consider placing this in the agenda after order number 1035. So between 1035 and 1036.
Thank you. Okay, and there are some treasurer's warrants. No, there are no treasurer's warrants tonight. Oh, nice. And we're ready to get on with the business of the evening.
Order number 10-29 is a 7 p.m. public hearing and second reading on the proposed amendments to Chapter 301, the Town of Scarborough Administrative Code, to adopt Article 23 in Energy Committee as recommended by the Ad hoc Energy Committee.
And Judy or Tom, do you have something you want to say about this?
Madam Chair, could I have a point of order, please?
Yes.
I think our new rules request that the chairperson ask the public if anyone
Right,
wishes
I
to
just
speak
going to
on
have them explain
Okay,
the
I just
issue
wanted
and
to make
then
sure
do that, right.
Okay, very good,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, just as an explanation, the Ad hoc Energy Committee was established in May of last year, did some extensive work looking at the benchmarks of energy use in the town of Scarborough, and talked about setting up energy plan and doing education and moving towards making Scarborough more energy efficient and less carbon producing. And as a result of that, they did a presentation to the council a month and a half ago on the work of the committee, and there seemed to be the opinion of the council that we needed to move forward on some of this, and it was a recommendation by myself that we move this committee to a standing committee, because we need to continue to work on energy conservation and ways in which we can save the tax dollars on energy, as well as reduce our carbon footprint. And so that brought it forward to the council. We've had a first reading on it, and that's where we stand.
Thank you, and I'm going to open the public hearing on this. Anyone like to speak on this? Welcome.
Dave Green, 135 Beach Ridge Road. I have an opinion on everything. Energy just happens to be my forte. I do heating, all right, for all kinds of customers in town and surrounding towns. As I read, and bear with me, because I don't believe everything I read in the papers, okay? But some of the papers have crucified this town for what has not been allowed as far as solar, electric, and windmills, okay? And honestly, if we want to go and move ahead on alternative energy, you're not going to get it out of a barrel of oil, all right? And I'm here to tell you, I deal with oil burning systems, okay? It's a dinosaur. But a lot of what's going on in this town that people have tried has severely been semi-stepped upon by the town, okay? And it's been crucified in the papers. And I'm not going to name names and go to specific areas of town, but there's windmills and solar electric. But please, by the same token, take a look at what this town has for ordinances that permit, whether they be solar electric, solar hydronic, or wind, or any other. There's things we haven't even thought about in the next 20 years that are going to come out of the woodwork, okay? And as a person in the field, I've introduced myself to say, there's things I haven't even thought about that will come in the next 20 years. So please, make sure that when this town, as a town, does something for alternative energy, that we're open and we can grasp people that want to do alternative things, okay? And I understand that not everybody wants a windmill farm in the backyard, and not everybody wants 20 acres of photovoltaic panels in the backyard, but some of this stuff is going to have to be allowed, okay, within the ordinances to allow this kind of stuff to transpire. Because there are a lot of people that out there now that are willing to go try some of this stuff. They have the money because they're spending thousands and thousands a year now to heat the house, to produce their or buy their electricity. They would rather produce it on the property, okay? And a lot of it is becoming feasible, and it's going light years ahead of us right now. I wouldn't even hazard a guess. I'm in the trade, 2 years down the road, what's going to come for what you can do and what you can't do.
Mr.
All
Green,
right, so-
your 3 minutes is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on the Energy Committee? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I would move approval of order number 1029.
Second.
Discussion among the councilors? Councilor Wood and then Councilor Roy.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate Mr. Green's comments because that is, the points that were recently made by Mr. Green are precisely the reasons why this council should embrace the formation of this committee and to make it a permanent, if you will, ad hoc committee to explore new and innovative ways that not only, it's not all about the town as a municipality exploring ways to power its own needs, but also to explore ways that they can consider new ordinances so that citizens also can take advantage of the technology, not only that exists today, but might very well be available around the corner. So certainly I embrace this and endorse it wholeheartedly and look forward to its formation.
Councilor Roy.
Yeah, also in response, interesting enough, the committee members that have been working on this committee are a wealth of knowledge. One gentleman, Paul Aubrey, owns two companies. One's Technology, Inc., and they do consultations for homeowners on the best way to reduce their energy usage. And also, his other part of his company has developed a prototype vertical wind system. So he brings a wealth of knowledge. He's currently working with the City of South Portland on the development of a trigen model for energy. And so, that kind of thing. Rick Meinken is another person on the committee, and he now is working with Efficiency Maine, and again, has a wealth of knowledge. He helped us do a lot of the benchmarking in the committee, which I'm the council liaison to that committee, did a lot of the benchmarking. And interesting enough, all of our departments in the municipal component of the town have done a tremendous amount already in energy conservation by changing out lighting systems. They've gotten grants through Efficiency Maine and gotten monies back to do some of the energy efficiency things that we already have in place, so it's kind of interesting. Sean Flaherty is a state legislator, but he's on a number of committees at the state level on wind energy and all of the other ways in which we can get away from the use of oil. And so he brings the legislature's information to us in that committee. Debbie McDonough is another person on that committee, and she's a genetics instructor at University of New England, but she's also very energy conscious, and she and her husband have many solar energy and all kinds of ways in which they've reduced their energy usage. So, and then Ian, I forgot his last name.
Engelberg.
Ian Engelman is a businessman in Scarborough, and he has, in his own, he developed the first electric car that you've seen driving around Scarborough. So the committee as it exists today are a group of people who are very knowledgeable and very foresighted in their thinking. And they have all expressed interest of staying on the committee, and they'll have to make reapplication, but there are, with this committee, we want to expand it to 7 members, so there'll be 2 more positions available on that committee. So I think it looks very promising, and they are forward-thinking, which I think is very, very important. And Tom and I just kind of sat there at the committee meeting, taking it all in, and certainly learned a tremendous amount about the various ways in which we can conserve our energy and reduce our carbon footprint. So I think it would be a tremendous thing to have this committee going forward, again, so we can save tax dollars and be more efficient. So.
Thank you. Councilor Babine.
Yeah, just to add to everything that has been said, including Mr. Green's, the formation of this committee actually has been something that has been a goal of the town councils for 2 years. I think we originally set a comprehensive energy plan as our goal for 2 years in a row. This at least facilitates the beginning of that, and if anything, later on we'll be posting names for the committee that included those names that Councilor Roy mentioned. It's almost a committee of great expectations, because I think that we're all so excited about what this committee could achieve for the town and the community as a whole. The fact is that for us to be a business and community leader from a regional and state basis, how we look at energy consumption and how we support both our businesses and our homes is a key factor, and I'm really, really excited to see the work get started.
Thank you. Councilor DeAndrea and then Councilor Roy.
I concur with everyone here. I was delighted to, in my first year on council last year, work on the ordinance committee and pass Scarborough's very first small wind ordinance. I don't think we'll ever see big wind in our backyards here, but it's nice to know that we now have a small wind ordinance in Scarborough. And I think the addition of this committee is, again, everything that everyone's already said, so I won't say it again, but I just think it's a real plus for Scarborough to be moving forward on something like this, setting a trend. Hopefully, we'll be there to lead the way.
Councilor Roy.
I just wonder, for the benefit of the public, the committee duties that we've recommended might be, just if I could summarize them, it would be good. One, we need to prepare and implement a comprehensive energy plan for the town of Scarborough that would need to be adopted by the council, and that's pretty much in process already. Serve as a forum to review and recommend opportunities to increase the efficient use of energy through conservation and alternative energy initiatives, to recommend ordinances, and that speaks to Mr. Green's, to recommend ordinances and policies to the town related to energy issues, analyze municipal energy use patterns and benchmark usage to identify opportunities, and much of that work has already been done, to pursue grant opportunities for energy efficiency and alternative energy sources, to recommend ways to reduce the town's environmental footprint by minimizing energy use, promote the local economy and protecting its environment. I would make a motion in a while on that one, because we're not sure what that one means. Explore the benefits and funding models for an energy office at the town, and we've already done some of that, and we've procured a grant from Efficiency Maine, which would pay for the salary for a lead person in that department, and provide public education and awareness through community outreach, and provide certainly an annual report to the council, so the council is always updated on the progress that committee is making, so.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor?
I wanted to make a motion
You want to make an amendment?
I would like to make a motion to eliminate, promote the local economy and protecting its environment, because we're
I'm not sure how we do that now.
we weren't sure, as we discussed it on the first reading, how we were going to do that, but it will be incorporated in many of the other duties that are identified.
Okay. Okay, so I haven't recognized the vote yet, so we can do
Okay.
that. Did you hear Judy's amendment?
I'd second the
Is there a
amendment.
second to that?
I would second that.
Discussion?
And again, I think that the purpose of, that I think it should be removed is because we really couldn't identify specifics, but it is incorporated in the other duties. I mean, to certainly promote local economy and protect the environment. We're doing that if we look at the energy issues and how we can conserve energy. So I think it's incumbent in the others. And
Further
that's-
discussion?
I'll state it.
All those in favor of the amendment as stated? Opposed? And any further discussion now on the amended motion? Now I shall actually call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? It's a vote. Thank you.
Under new business, order number 10-34 is a first reading, and schedule a public hearing on the proposed municipal school budget for FY 2011.
Would anyone like to speak on this topic? Please.
Councilor Babine, I believe we're both right. The budget does include a pay raise for the municipal employees, but based on the article that I read, the municipal employees offered to take a pay freeze. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I believe that's correct.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on the first reading of the municipal budget this evening? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval of order number 10-34.
Second.
Discussion? Councilor Roy.
Just basically that certainly this is just the first reading, just so that the public here, the Finance Committee, of which I am the chair, has not completed the review of the municipal budget yet. Our next meeting is the 15th, which is next Thursday at 4 p.m. To complete the departments of the town component of the budget, and hopefully to make recommendations, to come up with recommendations for council consideration. We are certainly well aware of the financial implications of any tax increase on the elders and young people and low income and just everybody. And certainly, we only have a bottom line decision on the budget as it relates to the school, but certainly I would encourage people to attend the hearing on the school budget, as well as attend the hearing on the combined municipal and school budget, so that we get input. Public's opinions and thoughts are taken seriously, and we will look at everything that we can to hold the line on the budget.
Anyone else? Councilor Babine.
I wanted to ask, actually, before my own comments, if possibly, because it's a fairly lengthy document that obviously cannot be read into the record while placed into the record, if the manager or the chair of the Finance Committee can give a executive summary overview of the budget, as far as what is requested on behalf of the municipal, the schools, and then what is the net impact?
Well, this is as it sits before you, it's the manager's
Correct.
recommended budget at this point, and no adjustments have been made to it yet.
Correct.
Would you like to just give a
I-
very brief overview, Tom?
It will be brief. I was not prepared to.
Just those bottom
Sorry.
line numbers.
Very simply put, this year's budget, both on the town and school side, come in under last year's budget from an expenditure point of view. On the town side, my proposed budget showed 1.3% decrease in expenditures. On the school side, as a starting point, there was a 2.2% decrease from last year. Really, what's driving this budget is a huge hole left in revenue, namely from the state. There's a small portion, I say small, relatively speaking, of revenue lost on the municipal side that's amounting to about a 6.2% reduction in total non-property tax revenue to the town. And on the school side, it's approaching 30% reduction. And it's really that loss of revenue that's driving much of our challenges. I would be remiss not to credit both town staff and I think the school finance department of really making some tough decisions and starting the conversation off on the right foot. Clearly, there's likely more work to be done, but it's really the tale of lost revenue is the way I'd characterize this budget. What that means on a net basis, we're showing about a 4.5% increase on the tax rate as a result of those factors. And that's where we sit. As was mentioned, Finance Committee has met twice. They'll meet once again. Finance Committee from the school and the full school board has actually done quite a bit of work since this initial proposal. None of those changes are being reflected in what I just described. Those will come to you, and the Finance Committee will hear those and consider those at your meeting on April 15th, and I suspect that should be a very interesting meeting. I would, just as a final comment, the Chair of the Finance Committee mentioned the process. The public hearing for the budget is scheduled for Wednesday, April 28th, and we have scheduled that out as a single-item agenda, if you will, on the budget. We do anticipate a lot of interest and want to make
And
sure.
what time will that start?
7 p.m.
Thank you.
So in anticipation of a lot of interest and the need and interest in people speaking, we thought it was best to separate that from one of your regular meetings and have a separate public hearing. And if all stays on schedule, the council will consider in second and final reading the budget at your regular meeting on May 5. And all of that puts us in position for the school validation vote already scheduled for Tuesday, May 11th. And that will be held here at Town Hall in actually Chamber B. Some of you are sitting in Chamber B right now. So forgive me if that was too broad an overview, but that's the best I can do off the top of my head.
Thank you, no, that's excellent.
I believe-
Counselor Roy,
I-
Counselor,
I'll defer to Council Wood.
okay,
I believe Councilor Babine had the floor.
okay.
So I wanted to ask
Go right ahead.
one
Counselor
clarifying
Baker.
question to the manager. Can you tell the public what portion of the 4.5% is related to the municipal budget? That's the tax increase. I have very rough numbers in my head. I didn't bring my finance package, but I believe it's about 60 basis point, or 0.60%, and the rest is the school. Is that about accurate?
I actually told the town manager not to do this presentation tonight, that we would do it in full at the public hearing. So I didn't have him be totally prepared, so I apologize.
Well, I think I can.
If I'm putting him on the
tax-
I
spot.
think I can answer that
Tax
question.
computation sheet should be able to
Right.
tell you.
When you break apart the actual, what makes up the mill rate.
Right.
The proposed municipal budget would add 13 cents to the mill rate, and that equates to about a 3.32% in our share. The school budget would add 41 cents to the mill rate, and that's about a 5.41% increase of their share. And then the county portion is much smaller. That's about 1/100th of a cent actually increase, but there is an increase.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to ambush you by asking, I just think
But all right.
it is the first reading, it needs to be laid out and understood clearly, especially if it's being written incorrectly in the paper, so I hope that provides some clarity. I believe, at least my understanding is, or remembrance, is about 60, of the 4.5%, 0.6% is related to the municipal budget increase, 3.9% is related to the school budget. I'm going to vote in favor of the first reading. We are still working very hard at the Finance Committee level to understand what has gone into the budget considerations, both from the municipal side and the schools. We haven't yet had the presentation from the schools, so I know that we're all waiting to hear that presentation because it's the biggest part of what we have to consider in this. And I will tell you that while I did take 1 year off, having served on the Finance Committee every year, this is probably the hardest year that I think I've experienced on the finance. And I usually try to find a centrist approach to budgeting that makes a little bit of sense, and this is really hard because I do hear it from both sides about the importance of our schools and the value of it, as well as from the tax base. So there's a lot to consider. As part of that, I really wanted to give credit to the town manager and to his staff, but also, very importantly, to the schools finance committee, because they had the hardest part of this job was on their side. So I do appreciate the work that they've done as well, and I look forward to debating this later.
Thank you. Counselor Roy, did you have a comment? And then Counselor Wood, did you?
I forgot.
Okay, Counselor Wood, did you?
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, as I said, and I think it was at our last meeting, this exceptionally difficult year. We predicted it. Last year was exceptionally difficult. We predicted this year would be harder, and some are already saying next year will be even more difficult. I think I certainly can support the first reading here. I'm looking forward to seeing that 4.5% projected tax rate increase to come down. I have a hard time supporting that kind of an increase, but I'm hopeful that that number will come down, and we'll be looking at a little bit less than that. As I said last meeting, I applaud the school board's finance committee for their hard work. They made a lot of hard choices, and I think that it reflects in the details. It's hard for me to even comprehend losing 29% of your revenue. That's an incredibly hard thing for me to even understand. I can't imagine if I thought about my household income going down 29%, how I would adapt and change. And the school board's finance committee and the school board as a whole and its administrators, I think, did that for all intents and purposes. So my hat's off to them. Of course, the municipal side, I think again, like last year, I applaud the hard work that has gone into the budget that's in front of us now. Both entities are reducing their expenditures a significant amount in the face of even more significant reduction in revenues. I know that it's a hard thing to ask the taxpayers for more of their hard-earned money. Last year, we presented the taxpayers with a 0% increase, and I don't mind telling you, I wish more than a few people got to the podium and thanked us for that, but that's okay. That's not why we did it. But we hear you loud and clear why this year, again, you'd like another 0%. So would I. But I'm going to be honest with you, I think that's going to be pretty hard to do and to maintain the services that we're all accustomed to expecting, including the level of education that we're expecting from our school department. So I think we should expect a small increase. I'd like to think that we could factor in last year's 0 with this year's whatever and be comfortable with that number. So at this point, though, I thank everyone who's worked so hard. I look forward to the discussion next week as the school presents its budget to the Town Council Finance Committee, and do support the first reading of it. Thank you.
Counselor DeAndrea.
I also want to thank all the department heads for the work that they've put into the budget. I think I said I also sit on the Finance Committee. I think I said at the Finance Committee to the department heads that having worked for 2 other municipalities, I've had to go through that process and sitting on the other side of the desk, and it's not an easy process, especially when you have to make the cuts that you have to make. This is my first time on the Finance Committee, and it is overwhelming. Having been a single mom for a good number of years, I can really understand about making sacrifices and knowing what the school department has gone through to make the cuts that they've had to make. I concur with Counselor Wood that I actually can imagine what it's like to lose 30% of your income, because I've recently lost about 50% of my income. So I understand what it means to the taxpayers in the town when they have to, when those people who are on fixed incomes and can't afford a raise in taxes. The more I look at this budget, my fear is that we may not be able to avoid some sort of an increase. I certainly, again, concur with Councilor Wood. I'm not comfortable with anything quite as high as the starting point that we have. I will be looking very hard at spots where we can make these cuts that people have talked about. I am very concerned about the low income and people in this town, and I also am very concerned about the retired folks who are on that fixed income. So I'll be working hard. Again, it's my first year. I'm really overwhelmed. I've been really overwhelmed by emails from folks, and I'm trying to slowly get through those and hopefully have some replies for folks. And I'm looking forward to, I think I'm looking forward to hearing the school budget next week.
Counselor Alquist. Sorry about that, Ron.
Excuse me, yep, that's all right. I certainly will support this first vote, and for obvious reasons. I think it's just a step in the process, and it's going to come back to us, and there's a lot of fine tuning to come to go between now until we get to the final product. But certainly where it's at now, I don't agree with. Can we avoid a tax increase? I don't know. It's a tough year this year, boy. We thought last year was difficult, and we tried to keep it to zero because we knew there was bad news coming down the road, and I guess it's here. But I appreciate all the emails. I appreciate all the comments that people stop me on the street and suggestions that they have, and there's a whole bunch of them. I know there's a lot of people upset after we had a crowd here. One of the past meetings that virtually everybody except I think Mr. Green said, let's raise taxes, you know. I heard from all those other people in town since then, and people who, senior citizens and working folks that just can't afford it. It isn't happening for them, and I think we got to try really hard. We got to buckle down and to accept this is the best we can do, whether, you know, if it's a 4% increase, I don't think that's good enough, and I certainly won't support it. I do support the Finance Committee. I know how difficult it is. I've been on that Finance Committee a number of years, and it is. It's very troubling, and you got to make some hurtful decisions. But the fact of the matter is, that's why we're here. I think we got to buckle down, and we got to do what we have to do. And everybody said it before. Next year is going to be even worse. It's going to be more difficult. So we got to keep that in the back of our mind, you know, what we're going to deal with next year. So I know it's difficult for employees to go without pay raises, and new equipment will be put off, and projects will be put off. I understand all that. You know, we live in a town where for so many years we were just going full bore, straight ahead. You know, we were developing things. We had the best of the best. We certainly have the best equipment, and I think we have the best town employees in the state of Maine, whether it's on the school side or the municipal side. But this is hurtful, and it's hurtful to everybody, and I certainly don't envy the Finance Committee. But in the end, can we avoid a tax increase? I'm not sure, but I'm sure they'll try their best, and I'll certainly look at all budget items and see what we can do to keep Scarborough an affordable place to live.
Counselor Holbrook.
Throw my 2 cents in too.
Okay.
Again, kind of echoing most everybody else, I do plan on supporting the first reading of this as a starting point, just to point us to, all right, this is worst case scenario, but again, I'm not comfortable with supporting a 4.5 increase, but I look forward to seeing the recommendations. I just want to thank the Finance Committee. That's a tough job, and hopefully, you know, you guys will pull through for us. Thanks.
Thank you. And Counselor Roy, you
Just-
remembered what you were going to say.
Well, yeah, just one more thing. I like to bring back a little bit of history, and I've kind of hung on to this piece of paper, It was a demographics of Scarborough that was published in March of 1976. But it gave the statistics from 1973, and that's when my family purchased the home that we're in right now. I've lived in Scarborough since '52, but in '73, we purchased a home in Green Acres. And in 1973, our census was 9,925 folks, and we had 1,777 students in our school system. And the tax rate was $24 per thousand, 1973. But if I recall correctly, my taxes on my current home, which I still live there, was $350 a year. My taxes on my current home is $3,300 a year. So there's been certainly a significant change since 1973, but I just carry this paper around to remind myself that I think, as tough a times as it is, Scarborough has done pretty well when we look at the fact that our tax rate was $12.15 per thousand for 2 years in a row. Certainly, our values have gone up significantly, and that's the clincher. So hopefully, we'll never get to that $24 per thousand again, but just a little history, it's just kind of nice. Anybody's interested, it tells, how many undertakers we had in town and how many bus trips went by here every day, and the businesses in town were quite interesting. We had Humpty Dumpty and Herman Shoe and not too many other things. So it's kind of interesting.
Thank you. And for myself, I am also going to support the first reading this evening. I've heard a lot of comments, and I am concerned about the increase. Certainly, I for one, where I work for the Area Agency on Aging, am well aware of the plight of seniors. And I am further concerned that in the manager's proposed budget, we are not funding many of the social services that are underpinnings of many of the basic needs of our town, and I'm very concerned about that. So there's, as everyone here has said, there's a lot of work yet to be done with the budget. So with that, I think everyone's had a chance to speak. I will take a vote. All those in favor? I don't think so.
The final reading is a roll call.
Right. All those in favor? Opposed? None. Thank you.
Order number 10-35 is act on the request from the town manager to approve the Pine Point Beach Access Plan.
Is there anyone who would like to speak on this, this item? Or should we do the presentation first? We'll do the presentation first, and then you can speak.
You just allow me a moment to get some.
Certainly.
Well, this evening is the culmination of work that began in September last fall. As many of you will recall, the town accomplished the so-called land exchange in late July of last year. And with that, I began a process using some staff support and also bringing in some residents as well. I called it a task force, and my goal in that effort was really to begin to understand how we might develop this area to benefit the neighborhood and really the community as a whole. And what you see before you this evening, and we'd like to go into as much detail as you wish, is the culmination of that whole process. I mentioned we started the process in September. We came up with an initial concept plan, and we thought it was important to work through that process and have something as a starting point for conversation. Many of you on council will recall we did hold 3 public meetings over the new year, if you will, late December and into January. Many of you, thankfully, were part of that process, and I very much appreciate that. We conducted those sessions in an open house format. Some people liked it, some people didn't. It was helpful for us because we were able to really have conversation with people and get a sense of what they liked, what they didn't like. And many folks took great advantage of the opportunity We also provided copies of the maps, and people would jot their notes down. The great thing about that is nothing was lost in translation, and following that public process, the task force reconvened, looked at all the combination of input we received, and in fact modified the plan to reflect much of what was provided to us. And again, so what you see this evening is the product of that effort. This evening I have Keith Smith. Keith is a landscape architect who assisted the task force through the process, and I've asked him here really to make sure we talk about all the detail that you're interested in. Beyond that, I see Mike Shaw here from the Public Works Department, who has been involved throughout, and of course Jim Wendell, the town engineer, has been a vital technical resource throughout. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Keith Smith, if you'll indulge us for a few moments, and I've asked him to give you a pretty thorough overview, and by all means, I don't think Keith would be disturbed if you stop and ask questions, or you can hold them to the end, but we really want to make sure that we're able to answer all your questions tonight. So, here's Keith.
Hello, as Tom mentioned, I'm Keith Smith, Terrence DeWan Associate, landscape architect.
Welcome.
And really, I'm pleased to be working on this plan. It's been really exciting. I know it's a small piece of land.
Keith, make sure you hold that mic right up so people can hear you.
Can you hear me? I know it's a small piece of land, but I think it's really turned out to be an exciting piece of land, and will really suit the town well. As a landscape architect, what I first had to come in and look at were the property constraints, and I'll just point those out. This is the property line around this parcel of land that was given to the town from the beach walk development. And from the land swap, we got this piece of land that goes all the way down to the point and across and ties in. So that is the 22-foot wide corridor that was a result of the land swap. So what I had to do was first look at this piece of land. The first question I had was who's going to be using it? What do we need to do? And the answer was there's going to be walkers, there's going to be people being dropped off, there's going to be bicyclists, people coming from the different parts of the neighborhood. So keeping that all in mind, we also needed emergency access as a constraint. They need to get down there, they needed at least a 10-foot wide paved surface to support emergency vehicles to access the frontal dune. And one other interest in the piece of property was originally people wanted to drop off, and we determined there wasn't enough space internally to do that. So we wanted to incorporate somewhere where vehicles pull up and actually drop off beachgoers, not a parking area per se, but to let people out and actually access the beach. So I'll start up at the top here and kind of walk you through the design. We have Pine Point Road, we have King Street, right at the intersection there, got the lighthouse and the beach walk development. As you come down here, the Pine Point Road development, or road construction, had already proposed sidewalks on each side of the road. So working with that, knowing that pedestrians are going to be coming down each way, we have crosswalks located points to get pedestrians safely over to this piece of property. And knowing that there's pedestrians and what could potentially be confusing, getting them there safely, we wanted to save pull-off. So we're providing 11-foot wide concrete drop-off zone that will be of different color. So it's well noted that it's not part of the road, it's kind of a safe zone. And we sized it so that it will fit two vehicles comfortably, and at some point potentially a bus drop-off or some other means of getting people to the waterfront. So from those two collection points, people will be able to come down neighborhood roads, take a bike down, and access the sidewalk.
Keith, apparently they can't hear you, so you're going to have to really put that mic right in front.
So, bicyclists can come down, pedestrians can come down, and people can be dropped off. From there, because the drop-off needs to be an accessible approach, that'll be a flush curb. And having a flush curb, we wanted some safety and some security so that you're not going to get vehicles driving down the access point. So, so we have some security bollards that are going to be placed at the entranceway, the center of which will be a foldable bollard that the emergency crews will have a key for in the case of an emergency. They can access the walk. And also, and beyond getting the pedestrians into there, the next thought was, how do we want to treat this? It's one thing to get them to the beach. We could do a straight line access, just get them there quickly. We looked at the space. We knew we had this bulb of a space that was town land, and we wanted to do something interesting with it. So we just came up with this curvilinear approach so that people curve into the site, which allows us a few things. Allows us some space for amenities. There was interest throughout the open houses to have some signage, an identity sign for the area. So that's the red sign there. It's shown to be about 8 feet long. It hasn't been determined what it will say and what the composition of the sign is yet, but we've reserved a place for that. There's 3 benches along the right-hand side so that people can have seating as they're being dropped off or waiting for someone to come pick them up or just taking a break along the way. As we go further in, there's a little pull-off area to your left with 2 red markers. Those 2 markers are signs. One would be informational, and the other one would be some sort of neighborhood signage, interpretive, historic, something that can be determined to turn this space into, whether it's a town-wide identity or a neighborhood identity, some interpretive opportunity. Throughout the process in the task force, there was an interest for some shade within the corridor. So this right here is a bench arbor. I'll show you details shortly. It's kind of an arbor with, or a bench with a seated, an arbor overhang that would probably be about 7.5, 8 feet high, just to provide sun or protection from the sun if someone was also waiting out there. Across from that is a trash compactor, solar trash compactor. We worked with Bruce Gullifer, suggested that was his preferred way of handling the waste along there to deal with maintenance. And we also have a seasonal trash receptacle a little further down. So there's one permanent one and one temporary one for the season. Just beyond there, there was an interest in foot wash and drinking fountain. I found a model that could do that in combination so that people returning from the beach can rinse their feet off before they head out. And we have another bump out with that in 2 seating. Just beyond that, on the right-hand side, is a 20 bike rack. It seemed, obviously, we want to promote the use of alternative transportation, and once you do that, you want to give them a place to park their bikes. It's located beyond the arbor so that far enough into the site, there's some protection and security for those bicycles, yet, and it's not a visual obstruction. And then beyond there, just out of respect for the abutter and knowing we only have a 22-foot wide corridor, we just mildly curved the pathway and continued on with planting and some boulders on each side. The planting I will get into, and the boulders, are a nice amenity to have along the way. Some people may sit down, set their bag down, open a drink, just gives a little refuge to the space. As you get to the end of the dune, at the end of the walkway, and you're approaching the dune, it's going to take a curve left and continue using the existing access from the end of the parking lot, which exists to the water. Within some of the other features that came up off-site through the planning process and through the neighborhood process, there was concern with some of the access and safety of vehicles leaving the lighthouse and the beach walk. And I know Tom will talk to that. Bill Bray had done a review of it town, he does a lot of the review for traffic for the town, and he suggested that we put a stop bar and a stop sign coming out of the Lighthouse Inn for safety reasons, and also that stop bar and a stop sign coming out of the beach walk for safety reasons. I'm going to drop this plan. I'd also prepared for you guys an image and detail gallery. The idea for the benches is to go with natural granite, nothing real formal. There's a couple examples of boulders just to give a little bit of relief from the walk. And here is a concept for the bench trellis. As you can see, it'll be that curved bench that follows the arc as shown. The planting plan, I'll get into. This is the color palette and the plants that I had envisioned for the space, and the task force was pleased with those selections. This was the perennials. This side is the shrubs. The fence, I'm going to put that back up just a moment to show you where the fence line is. Everyone had decided that through the planning board and neighborhood interest was to have a split rail, a two-rail, split rail, round fence as it exists in Herd Park. So we'll essentially be matching the fence line in Herd Park. The town portion of it comes along this property line. This is the brown line here to the end. And we had originally had a dune fence here, but we're planning to extend the split rail fence along the end of the dune at this point. And the Lighthouse Inn will be matching the town fence on the other side of the property, all along that line, and then ending at his entrance. So, and as I mentioned, here's a photograph from Herd Park, so it'll be the two-rail round post split. The bike rack is just going to be a standard S-curve bike rack, long enough to accommodate 20 bikes. The folding bollard, we intend on having a different color than this, and these are the only photographs that were available based on that. What we've selected is the round bollard. It's a little more ornamental than the more utilitarian rectangular one, and this allows emergency personnel to just use their standard padlock, drop the bollard, and be able to access the site. Here's an image of the solar trash compactors that were suggested for the site. We don't know what color we'll use, but that gives you an idea there. This right here is a drinking fountain option. This particular model here is 4 beaches essentially. It has an area where you can catch sand sediment that gets in there without clogging the system, and it can also be accompanied by a spray wash. And then this is just a couple examples of some signage opportunities that's not yet designed, but there is the placeholder on the site for signage. The planting plan. What I've done here, I've revised it a little bit from what the planning board had seen. One thing that we found out we're going to need is a permit by rule through DEP, and in keeping with that, I made a revision which incorporated all natives from this point forward toward the frontal dune. And in the back part, I have a mix of both the natives and some ornamental perennials, just to make it a little more decorative at the entranceway. I don't know if you want me to get into species, but you know, there's junipers, there's some perennials. We got Coreopsis, Veronica, there's Rudbeckias. So a mix of colors. The colors that are on the plan try to represent somewhat the color of the blooming period. And one constraint that I did have, because it was absolutely unanimous that we had to have all the plants that were going to be 36 inches or below, so that you're not obstructing view corridor from Pine Point toward the water. And just to I'll give you a quick comparison, you can just see how they change at this end.
Yep.
I took some of the perennials out, that's more than natives. The red plant there is a Monarda, and it's actually native to Maine, so that has been submitted to the DEP. haven't heard back on that, so there may be some minor revisions to the planting based on their recommendations, but that was the plan at this point. And I think that's
Thank you very much.
you're very welcome. If there's any questions.
We'll do questions, I think, after we've had public comments. Tom, you wanted to do a little bit more presentation, though, I believe. Or is this it for now?
Well, I think that might be enough, and I'm very interested in hearing public comment. If it works for everyone, I'll leave this image up.
Okay, anyone from the public who'd like to speak on this, you have 3 minutes. Please come forward at this time. I mean, you have 3 minutes each, not 3 minutes. That's from Eileen Hurd.
Hi. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and for your service to our town. My name is Judy Shirk, and I still live at 6th Avenue 3 in Pine Point. I'm here tonight to ask you to consider that this beach access plan is a part of a larger set of issues for this corner of Pine Point. It will be the last of 4 major developments in a small, very busy, heavily traveled, and valuable part of our community. The first development was the Beach Walk subdivision approved 4 years ago this July. It is only half developed, and one requirement I urge you to discuss tonight is the sidewalk the developer was to construct from East Grand Avenue to the town-owned land. Questions should be answered tonight as to how much that developer will be contributing to the project. Also, the council should be made aware of the Beach Walk's stated intentions to install privacy fencing and tree buffers for their privacy, which will block public views. Can we be assured this will be prevented? The second development was the road improvement project at this corner, described 2 years ago as a routine public works project. This plan evolved to a much larger scale, calling for a significant narrowing of the road. It was recently bonded by the council, and bid requests came in much higher than the manager has indicated. The road design will have an obvious impact on the plan you are reviewing tonight, and vice versa. It is a fact that both plans were not developed with data on traffic patterns of vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians. Why? Because despite residents' pleas for years, no traffic study has been done at this unique corner. The third development was the Lighthouse Condotel's parking lot site plan the planning board approved in December. Tonight you have a very specific plan for a new town facility. It deserves a careful, thoughtful examination in the context of the 4 developments, and not just the attractive graphics, but how much its details impact and are impacted by other projects. This still has not had a full public process. The public forums were held during the holidays. They were poorly, very poorly attended, despite what you may hear. Many of you came, as did town staff, but the community was absent, understandably. I also want to say that the town council members are not expected to be traffic engineers, municipal administrators, or architects. You rely on these people for professional advice. However, there would be no need for committees like Mr. Hall's task force, or planning boards, or public forums if we simply adopt an engineer's conclusion. So please let your common sense prevail and acknowledge that these professionals may not always have the answer. Having said that, I urge you to reject the view that the motel's large stone wall structure stay where it is, with only a small portion relocated as shown. The recent surveys ultimately proved what residents have known all along. This large stone wall was built almost entirely in the public right-of-way, forcing people into the travel lane at a dangerous curve.
Mrs. Shirk, you need to complete your statement.
Okay. All right. Well, I had a lot more, I had quite a bit more to read. You wouldn't finish, but I asked you to.
After we've had it from everyone, I may do that, but I need to make sure everyone gets it.
Okay, can I just say a couple of things I did write down? I just want to say that this plan was not the wishes of the people. If it had gone to the voters, we wouldn't be here tonight, let's face it. Giving away oceanfront beach access, in my opinion, is bad government. And recently I watched a live ordinance committee about the Higgins Beach parking issue. And a counselor asked specifically to wait for the people from away to come back so they could weigh in with their input. We never had that option. We never had that opportunity. I've been involved in this for 6 years. This last task force, I've been on every committee, either as a member or an observer.
Mrs. Shirk, we
I
have
was
to
shut,
end it.
I
I'm
was shut
sorry.
out, I was denied. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, my name is Sue Perino from Driftwood Lane in Pine Point. The beach access plan you're about to act on is pretty straightforward. There is such a small amount of public land left that the options are limited. I am glad that there's an overwhelming support for open rail fence and urge you to require that the identical to the one at Hurd Park. I also urge you to get a fence ordinance for scenic areas on your agenda, so an effort by the abutters to put up stockade fencing next to the open rail fence will never be allowed. I also urge you to support the drop-off. It will never replace Depot Street or the turnaround many people wanted, but it is something. And I strongly urge you to order the removal of the brick wall structure on King Street, which has now been proven to be constructed on town property. In my daily travels past it, I've witnessed many close calls because it has always forced pedestrians and bikes into the travel lane at what I believe is a dangerous curve. What has now complicated your action tonight is what many of us feared all along, that the funding would not be available. The road rebuilding project in this area, we were told, would come under budget and money would be left over to improve the town land left over from the swap. That does not appear to be the case now. So even though you have apparently approved the road project, this funding news is directly related to your vote on the beach access plan. Why adopt this plan if we don't have the funds? Will the narrow parking strip we now own remain just crumbling pavement for people to walk down for the access to the beach? Will that tiny parcel that we own go another 3 or 4 years as an unsightly graveled piece of land which has been used as construction storage area by Beach Walk? The plan before you has a beautiful graphic, and we'll hear how wonderful, or has heard how wonderful it is. It will be. Well, after all this neighborhood has been through, the least thing the town should do is to fund the plan. Perhaps we'll be surprised tonight by the last-minute discovery, another $70,000 to do it, and heard it earlier tonight that that's apparently the case. I'm happy for Higgins Beach. They have a beautiful new sidewalk, seawall, handicapped access area, and a ramp for the beach, and now $1 million parking lot. We should invest in our beaches and make them inviting and accessible. But Pine Point has no sidewalks. It has tremendous bottlenecks at Hurd Park, which is, after all, not much of a park. It's a sea of pavement. What small amount of open space it had between Avenues 4 and 5 is filled with many cars, many summer days. And let's not forget the town sold off 10,000 square feet of Hurd Park to a developer for building lot, so that has gone forever. We've endured barricades on Depot Street for decades, then its permitted closing, summer construction at Beach Walk that was prohibited, a damaged road there, large stone walls built in the right-of-ways, crumbling sidewalks on East Grand Ave, and a new commercial pier plan, which was given one public forum 2 years after it was designed and weeks before final approval. Significant drainage problems and major environmental issues at the old snow factory. Those are not your fault, but it is our situation. So I ask you to consider the road project and the beach plan together. Postpone the road reconstruction since the bids were far over the amount the town manager has consistently estimated will leave no money for the beach access plan.
Can you
Use some of the
wind up now?
Yeah,
Thank
use
you.
some of the funds to approve for the road to do the entire beach access plan. Put the sidewalk where the motel stone wall sits and save the rest of the money. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Dave Green, 135 Beach Ridge Road. Having lived here all my life, I was 14 years old when I realized that it was public highway. And I have a great feeling for what's public in this town because I've done deed research on my property that goes back to 1774, before this was the United States, okay? So I understand what the town had. I understand trying to make the best of a bad situation, and what's done is done. Just some thoughts from somebody that sits back and reads what I get from the newspaper and from what I hear from people around town, because I am around town a lot. I guess I don't understand, there's some big concerns about some concrete block wall that comes out around there. Now, I don't understand why you people just don't address that and fix that, okay? Fix it. There's a concern that the Trudeaus own something, maybe they do, maybe they, I don't know, but address it. If it ain't there, it ain't there, okay? If you infringed on my property, I'd have a lawyer and we'd fix it. Simple as that. So let's get it over with and get it behind us. My next question is, in the time of budget, we're all standing here worrying about where we're going to get the money to spend on this year's budget. Somehow, I don't have a warm, fuzzy feeling that we got the money to fund this. Because my first understanding was, oh, there's an excess from King Street. There's no excess from King Street. Now, oh, there's going to be an excess from the Broad Turn Road. I don't know. We're going to take excess from excess from excess? Is the money there or isn't it? And you, the people that need to decide that. Is this going to go forward or don't you have the money? And do you want to appropriate money to fund it? Please, just get this behind us. It's gone on far too long. This little piece of property down to Pine Point. Please, let's get it fixed and get it over with. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
My name is Arlene Hurd. I live in Old Orchard Beach. I'm a member of the Pine Point Resident Group because I lived at 4 King Street. In 1992, I purchased 4 King Street. There was no motel office across the street. There were low bushes, trees, my mailbox, and a telephone payphone. This brochure I have right here is a picture of the house. A realtor stood behind the bushes to take the picture. Had there been a stone wall, I would have had to stand on it to get my mail. People using the payphone would have had to stand on the stone wall. Mr. Bray, the traffic consultant, stated in his report to the Beach Access Task Force in February 2010 that King Street is, and I quote, "a somewhat narrow roadway. Street parking on either side of the street certainly has a negative impact on both vehicle circulation and roadway safety," unquote. At the planning board meeting March 7th, the town manager said the stone wall would come down if it was found to be a safety issue. When will he determine that it's a safety issue? And does it have to be when somebody gets hurt? This council has the responsibility to end the policy of allowing this substantial encroachment in the name of safety and in the fairness to others who observe the law. The council should order this structure removed, not at the expense of the Scarborough taxpayer, but at the expense of the Lighthouse Motel that did put it up. I have here a list of things I would like to read if I have enough time.
You have a little over a minute and a half left.
I'll try. And I gave you this copy to give
Yes.
to the people.
And I shared it with everyone.
Thank you. The whole process has been flawed. I urge you to do the following. Stop the road construction due to lack of funding and questionable engineering. Order the stone wall removed. Require the beach walk to install the sidewalk they were required by the planning board. Require the beach walk to repair that portion of the public road they destroyed by their private road. Order Public Works to remove the stone wall structure by Memorial Day and build a motel for its removal. You will get paid. Use some of the funds allocated for the road construction to do the beach access plan for this summer. Use some of the funds allocated for the road reconstruction to continue a sidewalk where the stone wall once stood along the surface and with safety improvements such as bike lanes and crosswalks. Take the savings of the approved bond funds and set it aside for later development. Then start this process over and over and consider the needs of other parts of Pine Point for infrastructure improvements. Make sure your staff does the things that are right this time. A traffic study, at the very least, must be done. It's common sense. Involve the public, not with forums in the dead of winter or task force made up of mostly town employees, but with more of an open process with people. And I also have here, I'd like to give
This is
you,
heard, you need to end up, but pass out your,
and that's it. And I just
Okay.
want you to see a plan that would work. It'd be a lot cheaper.
thank you. Anyone else? Very quickly, if you could just give, I can give you an extra minute, Mrs. Sherk, that's it.
I don't know just where I left off. Okay. The drop-off plan is very important. The neighborhood community and our visitors lost a precious access to the shore when the previous town council closed Depot Street. So please endorse the drop-off plan. That small drop-off area is all we have left now that Depot Street is closed and privately owned. You can make it safer and make the entire corner safer by urging that wall be removed and a paved area or sidewalk put in its place. Please do not permit the planting shown on this design. This should not become a public garden, but a place for the public to use. By filling it with aggressive or sensitive plants, you will effectively discourage use of the land other than the trail. Require generous amounts of grass, which can be easily maintained as the other parks in town. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I want to say good night, Pine Point.
Good evening, Robert Baisley, 28 Dunstan Landing Road. First of all, I'd like to start by thanking Tom for getting some of the information that was requested on email. I do appreciate it, and I will be studying it in the future. Tonight, all of us here in this room that are residents, of course, and other residents outside the town, we all have one common interest, and that is the health and well-being, safety of our children and our families. And as such, I'm an advocate for the environment and for clean waters. And along with the Pine Point issue, losing public access or, in essence, a 50-foot right-of-way being reduced down to a 20-foot right-of-way is a major loss for we as citizens in town and for our children. I've presented this to my two sons, and they feel that they're going to lose out on this. Even my 6-year-old son reminded me that it was like the commercial with the little girls on the bike, and you got the banker there saying you can't go outside the box. So, but that aside, as someone else already said tonight, I guess some of that's water under the bridge. So moving on about the environment. The environment is silent and unable to speak or defend itself against the wrongful acts of mankind, yet provides a profound impact upon good human health and well-being. With the planning board, I do have some issues with our planning board. I wish they would stop, pause, and really become intimate with the environmental rules and regulations. It's obviously they don't know the sand dune regulations. In Pine Point, that whole peninsula is basically a barrier reef, and technically that is supposed to move as the sea levels change up and down. That is supposed to move back and forth. And there is likely documentation out there that it has. It's moved from where the railroad tracks are outward, and it will probably move back with time. And so, in doing the parking lot project, one of the things I was very concerned about is the fact that no one addressed the runoff waters from that parking lot. We know for a fact that vehicles provide a lot of pollutants for the water systems. As many of you already know, you're working with the Long Creek Project, Clark's Pond over in South Portland, and that is a major issue. And there should have been some type of storm drain put in there that filtered out sediment and heavy metals. That hasn't taken place.
Mr. Baisley, your 3 minutes,
Okay.
unfortunately, is up. Can you just quickly summarize?
Yes. So what I'm looking for is to make sure that these environmental issues are going to be addressed, that proper procedures are going to be followed, and that the planning board does a better job in looking at and following these guidelines and rules.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Seeing, oh, Mr. Sullivan. Thought I was going to get to close it.
Richard Sullivan, 1 Sullivan Farm Road, Scarborough. I'm sorry, I apologize to the councilors tonight. I don't have a prepared statement written by another author that sounds fancy and nice. As far as the project goes, it's a very nice project. I want you all to remember, it's a project for everybody in Scarborough. This is something for everybody to enjoy. That they can go down there, it's more inviting, it's well thought out, there's been a lot of input put into it, and a lot of time. And I think that this project should go through, and the funding, I hopefully would think that you would be able to come up with the funding to complete the project and make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? One more.
My name's Kim Green. I live at 135 Beach Ridge Road. Thank you. The plan is very colorful. I prefer natural surroundings. I just don't think it fits. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, now I would entertain a motion.
I move approval
Everybody's
Second.
lost their place.
All right, yeah.
of Order 1035.
And we have a second. Discussion. And/or questions.
I think I may take the podium just in the event.
Okay, that's fine. I think I saw Council Wood's hand first. Take it away, Council
I have a
Wood.
few. Thank you. Thank you for all your comments. I appreciate them. I don't agree with all of them, certainly, but that's okay. That's what makes this town and nation great, our diverse opinions out there. And I think that we would even have more different opinions if we get involved in, plantings and that nature. But I do embrace a more natural type of landscape. I always embrace the split rail fencing idea. I've heard some of the comments in the written literature, Tom, about the apprehension with a mesh attached to the fence. I have that around my pool. I think it's attractive in that kind of scenario, maybe not in this, I'm not so sure. I understand there won't be any lighting. I know that some would question that. I don't question having no lighting. But the two areas I think that are most important for me anyway tonight is, first of all, I'll say that I'm an advocate for the environment as well, and no one can convince me that they can be an advocate for the environment and embrace a 50-foot wide impervious surface. This is an improvement to the environment, and I think it goes a long way toward that end. The two walls, I think there's two walls I might suggest that are in question here, and the citizen, Mr. Green, said something that I think I heard myself saying a couple times last year. Words to the effect of, this has gone on far too long. I agree. And also, I think in another discussion, we should probably look to rob Peter to pay Paul to get some of these things done. I think that we might be able to discuss that a little bit more in our next order. So the two walls. I don't support anyone encroaching on anyone else's property, town or otherwise. I also don't support removing that stone wall on King Street just for the sake of removing it. But it seems to me, and you can tell me, Tom, if you don't mind, what kind of discussions have taken place not only in the town side, but also at the planning board level that I have not been privy to, but it seems to me removal of that wall, and I'm not talking about replacing it with a sidewalk necessarily, but removing it and just having additional esplanade would enhance the safety of that area and improve its utility.
Perhaps it could, and just because it's easier for me, I'm going to point, if I could, with the pointer. I presume you're talking about this wall here?
Yes, sir.
There is no doubt, and I don't think anyone's ever disputed the fact that that structure exists well within the town right-of-way. That's never been a question, never been a dispute. I think the question has been whether it provides a hazard in its current situation. And in fact, though I think Keith noted it, but it's important to note again, you'll see the leading edge of this is in fact being brought back a bit slightly. We're softening that edge. That's done for a number of key reasons. It will accommodate traffic moving out of the parking lot, and as it looks to the right up King Street, and making that right-hand turn, frankly. But it also will help the traffic that's departing from these drop-offs. It's really essential to cut that leading edge back so that traffic can comfortably get back into the travel lane without a very sharp curve, if you will. I would direct your attention back to the comments Bill Bray provided. I did provide that to council. That was in my manager's notes. And in essence, he certainly doesn't advocate that structure per se, but I believe his recommendation is something needs to be there from a safety point of view. The purpose it would serve is to make sure the traffic merges back into the travel lane comfortably, and frankly, sooner than later. If there's no structure along this edge of the road, you can imagine some cars will linger, will merge later, and from his point of view, it's best to have them merge sooner than later. Could that same public purpose be served, or public safety purpose be served with something else? Certainly. It's been suggested that curb and sidewalk, I think that could serve that purpose. There might be other options. You mentioned an esplanade. I would caution that. I think it needs to be curbed. There needs to be some sort of vertical difference, if you will, to make sure that the motorists don't encroach, either knowingly or haphazardly. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that's important and vital in and of itself, but something needs to go in its place. And we are mindful of budget. That will be a cost to the project. Just a final comment in that regard. As a precursor to this process, the town, working with the residents for well over a year, and I stepped into the tail end of this process, I know Councilor Rancourt was heavily involved, worked through the details of how that stretch of King Street and merging into Pine Point Road is to be constructed, the road profile, the lane width, so on and so forth. And the decision at that time was to focus pedestrian safety on the opposite side of the road, and that's what's always been part. Again, that was a precursor to this conversation. It would be a bit redundant, it seems, to put a small piece of sidewalk on this side, replacing the landscape area, since we're already providing for that on the opposite. But if that's the will of council, we can certainly do it. I just think it will add cost to the project.
It's been suggested that the cost, and I know this is not the total cost, and I'm not a cost engineer, but it's been suggested the cost should be borne by the individual who put it up. I mean, how can you best predict how that would play out? Not the improvements that would result following its removal.
This is not a typical situation. Encroachments do exist. They're fairly common around town. I suspect if you travel further up King Street, you'll see any number of encroachments that exist, from stone walls to fences. These are things that happen without the approval. They're not condoned by the town, certainly, and it happens overnight, or some happened 50 years ago, perhaps. Certainly, it's the position and the policy of the town, if there's an encroachment in the right-of-way that provides a safety hazard, we will cause it to be removed, one way or another, whether we do it ourselves or we work with the property owner. In this instance, and frankly, the more common occurrence, and Mike Shaw is here and he can speak from firsthand experience, when we're doing public work in an area, we often come across these sorts of things. And we make every effort to accommodate and work with residents to restore that back in a similar fashion, so long as we can accomplish the public purpose. That's certainly the case here. I think it happens to serve part of our purpose. It already pre-exists. But again, it could be accommodated through other means. And let me say that I don't believe the town's position or legal position is weakened whatsoever. It is an encroachment. We can cause it to be removed at a moment's notice if we wished.
And I'll summarize real quick.
That's
Thank you.
okay, take your time.
The other wall, the block wall.
I'm not sure which wall you refer to.
I think it's on the other end.
Oh, yes, there is a block wall
Yes.
here.
Is there a block wall that's on the property that is town-owned and planned to be improved?
Yes, it sits, it must be right on the property line,
That's to be
right at the
removed.
edge of the frontal dune, and right at the property line, and it is to be removed as part of this project.
All right, I don't plan on wasting folks' time and getting too encroached in some of these details, such as plant species and the like. I think it's a nicely thought-out plan. I think the forums that we held, yes, they were in the winter, and they were in the holiday period. I think they were after Christmas and maybe before New Year's.
There was some before Christmas and some after.
Okay. But right now, we're in April, and it seems to me that the interested parties, and I appreciate their attendance, are not only here tonight, but they were there then. And I'm not convinced that that would have changed much, depending, no matter when we might have scheduled those forums. I might be wrong, but my sense is it may not have. And the input from the residents has been critical and instrumental in getting us to the point that we're at. But part of the success of this, there's many things that have to happen for this to be successful, and one of them is an embracement, if you will, by the citizens, not only all over town, but the folks down at Pine Point. And I know I might not be all that popular with some folks on this project, but I haven't lost sight of the fact that that is still critical. And if that stone wall and its encroachment on town property and its removal can happen and can help this be further embraced by the citizenry, then that in of itself is enough reason for me to support the removal of the wall. I don't support the removal of the wall simply to build something that isn't needed. But removal of that wall seems to me to offer other opportunities to improve and facilitate the movement of vehicles and people. And that's my only disagreement with the town plan, with the plan that's before me tonight, of any substance, really.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other, Council Roy?
Yeah, I would concur with Councilor Wood. I think, if the removal of that wall would assist in the embracement of this project, I think that works. I think Mr. Green also was right. We've dealt with this long enough. I think, we need to move forward. Change is always difficult. As I look at the wall as it's portrayed on the diagram there, I'm not a planner and I'm not Bill Bray, but I think easing traffic back onto King Street, if that wasn't there, might be easier. It looks like it might be easier to me. But if that helps the project, I think, but in the long run, I think the whole project, I'm disturbed by some of the comments that we got in some of the contacts, that no public input was ever asked for or considered. Gosh, I think we've bent over backwards to get the community involvement, whether it was December or January. I think the majority of the people that came up at the first round a lot of the folks were people who were here year-round. I think we've bent over backwards, and I just think it's time to move on, but I would certainly concur with doing something different with that wall, removing it, and easing the traffic. You look at the drop-off, and it just looks easier to me that if there were more space there, they could ease back into the traffic flow a lot easier without the wall. Thank you.
And I think Counselor Holbrook and then Counselor Babine.
Couple quick things. The first one is I too favor the removal on the stone wall. But I also would think it would be beneficial that any property owners perhaps maybe it would be beneficial to give some notice just about where the construction's coming through, about anybody. Like Tom said, there could very well be many people with encroachments, and a little fair warning would probably go a long way. So if we could, some kind of a mailer, just to, hey, we're doing construction in this area, coming soon. I know there was a mention about some permits that we're still waiting on, or some kind of a contact with the DEP. Do you have any idea as to when we will receive that feedback?
We have applied as of today for what's called a permit by rule. It's issued by the DEP. Statutorily, they have 14 days to respond to our application. So the best answer I can give you is within 14 days from now, we will hear from them. I assure you, Keith Smith and also Jay Chase in the Planning Department have been in very close contact with them, and I believe our application has been prepared complete, so I don't think there's any issue there. So within 14 days, certainly we will hear, and I expect we'll receive the permit we've applied for.
Now, could that seriously impact the park design as far as what their comments might be?
I don't believe so. Perhaps Keith Smith can answer this better, but as he mentioned at the outset, we have modified the planning design to accommodate what we expect they'll be looking for, which is returning more to native species, at least in that area closer to the frontal dune. Beyond that, I think we're in pretty good shape. It's a fairly straightforward permit by rule process. Again, I'm not the technician on those details.
I mean, I didn't hear the whole question.
Just what kind of sorts of changes, if the DEP has some changes to the park plan, what kind of changes are we talking about?
The only thing I can anticipate is maybe changes in the species of the plants. For example, further back where I have more perennials and some of the colorful stuff, they may say, we'd like to see that all natives. And they may adjust my native species list to some degree based on their discretion.
Okay. There was an idea that came around that I really liked, and I'm not sure that got addressed. It had to do with giving the kids at the schools the opportunity to name the park, like do a.
Right, that is still in.
That's
plan.
still in a go? Okay. My last question, and I promise it'll be it, is actually more of just a thought, not necessarily a motion, but a thought is, I'm kind of wondering if perhaps we shouldn't, in an essence, split this plan a little bit, because I'm looking at this going, the money to fund this, as far as the plantings, when we start talking the landscaping aspect of this plan, if we could split that apart from the plan itself, compared to, the structural part of it is one thing, and then the plantings and all the garden-esque things is a separate thing.
Right, and I have spoken with the manager about that, and we do feel that this is going to have to be a phased project, that given the calendar and getting this ready for summer, we probably are going to do the hardscape first, and the softscape will follow.
Okay.
We just, in order to have it really up and functional for Memorial Day weekend, everything, the calendar isn't long enough.
That's correct. Of course, the issue of funding is still hanging the balance as
Correct.
well.
But that aside, just the actually being able to do it is probably not possible.
Correct, yeah. There's a physical challenge that we're not able to certainly implement this entire plan and move out of the way before Memorial Day.
And Councilor Babine?
Yeah, a couple of items. So far, the best advice I've heard, while sometimes citizens' advice can sometimes be received bitterly because of the tone, it was absolutely the best advice. We've gone on far too long. Get it fixed, get it over with. And I think that if anything, this council and even the previous, especially the previous, are working to doing exactly that, and I hope tonight, and I think tonight, we're going to end what has gone on far too long. We're going to get it fixed, and it's going to be over with, including the funding portion of it, so I'm very excited about that. As far as the design itself, just a couple of, I don't really want to get into too many details. Taking a devil's advocate approach towards the issue about the encroachment, I was given a copy of a photo that was taken approximately, it's estimated, 37 years ago in 1973. I hope everyone's had a chance to see it, which actually shows that that same encroachment was there 37 years ago. So this is not a new encroachment. It's not something that has changed by design, except for maybe it has better stones today than it did before, but it's looks from the dimensions, looks to be exactly the same as what's being depicted up there. With that in mind, it seems to me, from a devil's advocate point of view, if I was the landowner, I would think that from a legal perspective, I might be able to suggest that there is an entitlement to keep that. And the reason is because of the safety or protection that provides to the structure of the building for traffic that comes around that corner, which by some accounts is extremely fast. Because if that is removed and that becomes a sidewalk, you've now exposed the corner of my property and the corner of my building to that speeding traffic. So I can see, that's a possible argument that the landowner can make. And the fact that it's been there for, in my essence, almost my entire life, except for a few years, doesn't seem like that this is necessarily a obtuse structure by any stretch of the imagination, although the picture is telling by itself. And because if you actually look up King Street, you can see it's barely even developed, and if you look at some of the open lands, they're all condos and new structures that go down that road, so it's pretty telling about the growth that's been down in that area. So I don't know if I would necessarily be in favor of just simply getting rid of that for the sake of even making a few people happy. The fact is that I don't think that something like this is going to make a lot of people happy based upon what I've heard. And what we've heard tonight is a whole new set of arguments of why not to pass the entire project. And we're going to continue to hear that no matter what we put forward, is why not to pass this. I am surprised that the amount of dissent around this. I went to one of the public sessions down at Pine Point. I think I had one person come up to me. The only question that I was asked had nothing to do with the design and whether I liked it or how we were going to fund it, but why did I vote the way that I voted and that I was wrong, as well as one other citizen who felt that I was not polite in my comments. But not one person, and most of them are sitting here, ever expressed any concern about the environment, water runoff, dunes, nothing at all. Nor have I gotten a phone call or any other communications around that other than what has been presented tonight, and then there was one handout that was actually part of tonight as well. So this is somewhat of a surprise, especially I think it was in the paper that one of the key leaders actually said that they found that, and I'm paraphrasing, so I don't want to over-paraphrase either, that this was a fairly reasonable result, even though it may not have been perfect or 100%. So to come in and basically tear this thing completely apart is a complete surprise, but I'm not overly surprised. Last but not least, the one thing I would like to suggest, and I'm not saying it needs to be contingent, I actually believe the two sidewalks that go across the street really should be raised sidewalks, thus becoming a traffic slowing device coming around that corner.
I'm sorry, you mean crosswalks, perhaps? Here in-
Yeah, see, so I'm sorry, what did I say, sidewalk?
Sidewalks.
I'm sorry, the crosswalks, the white crosswalks could be raised, something like what they have on Maple Avenue to slow the traffic that comes around that corner, because I can see it becoming a mess with those, where the two cars are right now parked, with cars trying to park in there, pulling out, cars going into the hotel's entrance, coming out of the hotel's parking area. I really think there needs to be some impediments there to slow that traffic down. And last but not least, as far as the flowering and the greenery, I don't know if, I hope that we minimize the amount of landscaping to the extent that we also have to look at what it will cost to maintain it on an ongoing basis. So I hope that whatever is chosen is self-sustaining, doesn't require a lot of maintenance and upkeep, and if that reduces some of the cost, then so be it. I do believe that at least there were some of the concerns that were stressed about the abutters on, I think it's called Beach Walk, about their buffer trees. I hope that we continue to be involved in discussing with them what the impact of that becomes. I mean, it is their property, as long as it's within zoning and within their or their permissibility, there's not a whole lot that we can do, but at least if we're there, I think that we should. Overall, I really want to thank the manager, the staff, the citizens, everybody who's inputted into this. I really am very excited about this. I think the value speaks for itself graphically, but also from a vision perspective. I think this is going to be really, really exciting.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? Councilor DeAndrea.
Yeah, I agree with some counselors and disagree with some counselors. I, of course, did not support the land swap. As far as it going on for too long, this particular land swap only came up last year. So this particular land swap didn't go on too long. Democracy is a messy business. Sometimes things take a long time. I don't know if I would agree it's a complete success. I don't know if I'd agree that it's a success at all. I think that there were a lot of citizens that felt like they were not heard. And I think that that's important to take into consideration. I have heard, though, tonight about moving forward. I do understand that. We need to get past that point. And I have heard some citizens talk about moving forward. And I was going to do a protest vote tonight, but I have heard a couple of citizens say we do need to make sure that we get some of these issues taken care of, especially with, in my thinking is to make sure that we still have that access there. How do we do that? How do we move forward? I would agree with Councilors Roy and Wood that perhaps I would support the removal of that stone wall and to create some other barrier there. If that helps to move the process forward, I would support that. And then my other issue was questions about the sidewalks as well. Considering the amount of traffic that comes around that corner, my only fear is that by having more than one sidewalk, especially the one that's right on the curve, could set up some dangerous situations with people not seeing people coming across.
Again, are you referring to crosswalks or sidewalks?
Oh, sorry, did I
Okay.
say sidewalks?
You did. You started the trend.
I'm channeling
Sorry.
Counselor Babine. So the crosswalks, that's my only concern is that having the two crosswalks and then especially the one on the curve could set up a potential for some dangerous situations. My sort of thought was, I like this crosswalk, and then I'm not even sure, I'm not even sure that one's set back far enough that way for people coming from the other side of the curve. That's my concern about the crosswalks.
Admittedly, this was a huge challenge and the source of a lot of discussion really throughout the whole process. This configuration was our recommendation that it's the best way to deal with it. This one located right at the curve, though it seems precarious, there's actually good sight distance, probably the best sight distance in both directions. Also, the cars departing here, you have a very good visual of that crosswalk as you pull out. Undoubtedly, there's access point here, there's one behind us, so it's very tight. We're the first to admit it. One of the things I want to just make sure we don't lose sight of, and this was the source of a lot of conversation during the process that Councilor Rancourt was involved with. It involved narrowing of Pine Point Road, and what's being proposed is, in the end, 11-foot lanes, and that's quite a bit smaller in travel lanes than are there now. That roadway is being narrowed with sidewalk on both sides, with an esplanade and even a small bike lane, if you will. That was a very conscious decision, and it's all about slowing traffic down. When the road's wider, traffic tends to go faster. What's important about that is as you come through the corner, we're maintaining that 22 feet, if you will, 11 feet in each direction. That's what that width is as well. So when we talk about removing the landscape wall, my strong professional recommendation is something. Curb and sidewalk would serve the purpose, should go in, so we maintain a consistent roadway width, and that so the traffic engineer advises that does serve a purpose of encouraging traffic to get back in the travel lane sooner than later, and that's a critical feature not to lose sight of. That will add cost, and just so we can appreciate this, we're not talking funding yet, but we estimate the length of that about 60 feet, based on pretty good unit pricing. That's about a $3,000 item to replace that with curb and sidewalk.
Thank you. I'm gonna speak before Mike, since I haven't had my chance to go yet. I want to say a couple of things. One is, I was on the road study committee, and one of our challenges was to work on the little teardrop of land that came as a gift from the beach walk. And I can remember, I actually heard the words come out of my mouth, is this should be a park, something like Betts Park at Oak Hill. And I think what we have here, although I've heard people say they would like it to be grass, that is much more labor intensive, and I am afraid it will turn into becoming seen as dune grass and limit our potentialities there. I really prefer the mixed planting that we're talking about. I certainly lean toward the natives, and if we can have some decorative plants, that's fine with me. But it will be very low maintenance. The only thing you need to do to Betts Park is weed it occasionally. There's no mowing or anything involved, so it will make it easier. The other thing I had mentioned to the town manager, and actually was brought up at the forums a number of times, was the issue of impervious versus a pervious surface for the pathway. And we had talked about there are many kinds of pavers now that are water permeable, and I'm hoping that that decision isn't totally made, and that may still be revisited within the budget parameters that we have. I recognize that we are reducing the impermeable surface by doing away with much of the tar that's there now. And we are reducing that, but I would like to see it so that, for example, in winter, we don't have water pooling, we don't have black ice forming, those kind of things if we have a water permeable surface. I too, although I understood Bill Bray's report, would much rather see what you're talking about, Tom, and this has been suggested here tonight, that we move toward either a sidewalk with an esplanade. We had talked about eventually putting sidewalks all the way down, and that would just be another step toward that. If we can find the money to do that, I think that would be ideal. And in general, I think the input from the public, even though it was limited by many of the summer people being gone, many of the things that they requested, the round rail fence being only the same height as at Herd Park, being only a 2-rail fence, having the drop-off, which I had a discussion over because I sort of misunderstood that for a moment. So I think a lot of things that were discussed are in this plan. It certainly isn't going to please everybody, but I think there's at least something in it that everyone will appreciate. You may not appreciate the whole thing, but there's going to be an element that I think you can support. So with that, Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for, I'm hearing the council support removal of the wall and in its placement, consider a curb and esplanade and/or the beginnings of a sidewalk that might meet the vision that the town has further down the street. Council Babine made a comment about a raised table where the crosswalks go, and I know that Mr. Shaw is here in the audience. I was wondering if I could, through the chair, ask Mr. Shaw how he might see that kind of application and perform, say, year-round, and the considerations that go into plowing, et cetera. The only raised table that I have any familiarity with is, I think it's Stevens Ave.
Yeah.
That has several in close separation from each other. It's Stevens Ave, right?
Yeah, it's Stevens Avenue. We don't have them, they're not on
Do you
Maple
have-
Avenue. That was one of the suggestions, but we never got the raised. We have the
Kissick Street has them.
We
too.
have the
Kissick does, yeah.
embedded,
So, Mike, it seems, they're pretty effective, at least in calming traffic down. I know it gets my attention. What about from a maintenance perspective?
The shorter answer is that both from a maintenance perspective, plowing and also from a public emergency response, we don't particularly care for them. But obviously, they can be worked around. One of the things that concerns me with the raised crosswalks is that in order to still promote drainage, you have to have you still have to have an open gutter, so it doesn't really lend itself as a raised crosswalk. I think that's kind of a misnomer that people try and wedge it into a multi-use piece. I mean, if speed bumps or speed humps, actually, speed bumps are narrower, speed humps are wider. Speed humps are something that people are interested in, then I think that should be taken in its own piece. Councilor Babine mentioned something about Maple Avenue, and one of the things that we did do with Maple Avenue was put a product down called a Duratherm crosswalk, and it's imprinted into the pavement, and then it's a hot molten plastic, similar to like some of the graphics that we have on Route 1, that goes down into it, and it does create a little bit of a noise or a little unsettling feeling through the steering wheel of the vehicle. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do along with narrowing the road is it's called context-sensitive solutions to traffic calming, and those are some of the things that we did try on Maple Avenue. And the curbing also does that as well.
So your sense is that this kind of context approach to the crosswalk would be a better solution than a speed hump?
I personally would rather see it that way, but, they're both options. I mean, it's, whatever the will of the council and the general public is.
I did want to say that, and Mike, you can speak to this too, we had, in the road committee, when we were talking about reconstruction of the road, there was a great deal of discussion about the narrowing of the road and how that has an impact on speed, and that and we really worked to get an esplanade, not what I would call a kosher bike path, but a bike lane perhaps, and a sidewalk that will really add on both sides of the street to traffic calming. So we're trying a number of strategies here to do that, to slow traffic down.
Correct. Actually, with the slip-form concrete curb that's being proposed on this project and that we did use on Maple Avenue, because of its color and because of it has a vertical element to it, it does, there's still 28 feet of pavement, curb line to curb line, but it certainly does feel like it's closing you in, and that's one of the other benefits to using that particular curb.
Councilor Wood.
Yeah, I can continue. There was I don't think I have anything more for you, Mike, but I appreciate that. I'm not speaking that others might not, but there was mention, Tom, about this plan being in an ordinance, and it would have more staying power, if you will.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of your statement.
This plan, if presented in an ordinance, would have more staying power, would have more influence to ensure that it's developed exactly as, there's no radical changes that might be made following our action tonight or later. Is there any validity to that?
No, I'm not sure what you refer to. If I said that, I'm not sure what I was saying.
Oh, you didn't say that.
Oh.
I'm just asking for your opinion on it.
No, we stand before you with a concept plan that actually is fairly well detailed. We would expect to execute substantially this plan. It sounds like there may be some changes. I think we can agree conceptually on those things. Where the curb line may fall, is a detail. But
Right. I mean, and this council doesn't, I mean, even as this plan exists today, wouldn't you feel the latitude, I would hope you would, to get together with Mike and others to explore things such as tactile type of approaches to crosswalks, et cetera?
Sure. As a matter of fact, when we bid the project, those Duratherm sidewalks that Mike referred to, we have pricing on that. We've value engineered them out to try to save money because they are not cheap.
Right.
In fact, I think crosswalks are in the order of $8,000 or $9,000 a piece. That's a lot more than paint.
Right.
So we have actual pricing, we can tell you what the cost of those are, and if you wish, we can add those back in. Again, it's a funding issue. That's really the matter for your next consideration, but yes, we can do that. It's a matter of money.
Okay. And there was other, I'm particularly interested in this part of the project. I do agree that, every project has, and oftentimes, more often than not, when able, should be taken in context to its surroundings and maybe other projects that are going on. And this fits well with what we have planned for King Street and Pine Point. But the Beach Walk subdivision, I was on the planning board when the Beach Walk subdivision was originally approved, and there were a lot of specific conditions that the developer agreed to. I know that developer is long gone. But things such as the fence, privacy fence, it resonates with me, concern that that privacy fence might be installed by the owner on his property, his or her property, without need to pay attention to any of those conditions that were part of the original subdivision plan. Is that true?
Certainly, the town can and will enforce any of the requirements as a part of the local land development subdivision approval. I think what's being referred to would fall more in the category of private covenants. There is a bit of a question as to what role the town may play in the enforcement of those. But I am aware, really anecdotally, from many of the residents, that there are fairly strict private covenants regarding height that would pertain to fencing, to landscaping, and so on. I think what was alluded to is we had a member from Beach Walk that's participated through all of this process, and I assume his point was for full disclosure. He's made it quite clear that he'd like to come back and talk about some strategic planting of trees and those sorts of things. The inference is that he's not allowed to do that. He needs to come and obtain further approvals to do so. Does that answer your question?
Well, yes, a little bit, but my experience is that the town getting involved in enforcing private covenants, it's not been a very successful endeavor. I'm speaking, and I don't have it in front of me, obviously, but I'm asking if the town staff can go over the conditions.
As a matter of fact,
part of the subdivision approval.
As a matter of fact, those very concerns were raised before the planning board as part of the closing comments. The chair of the planning board directed planning board staff to do just that, to open up the plans, to go inspect in the field and come up with a list of things where they're not compliant with one another.
Okay, and then if the developer wishes to request exceptions from those, then there's a process for that.
That's right. And as you alluded to, we don't have a developer in this instance, and that's one of the points of history worth noting in terms of why, if at all, what's happened in the field have deviated from the approved plan. The project was largely built, much of the infrastructure, after the developer left town without any security in hand. So that piece of history is an important piece.
But I would think the conditions that went with that approval of the subdivision are still enforceable. I don't know how, but I'm thinking they must be, because that can't be the first time that situation's occurred.
Frankly, the only major deviation from the plan, and it was referred to earlier, is the sidewalk on King Street extending up to East Grand. I believe that was a very clear requirement of the subdivision that has not been accomplished. It is proposed to be done as part of the work that the town is considering, and that was certainly a point of discussion and understood all the way through the planning process.
Well, in summary, again, I support this plan. I think that we should go forward to investigate ways that we can make those crosswalks a little bit more tactile, if you will, and traffic calming. I support the removal of the stone wall and in its place something that still beats the engineers and this council, it seems, and planning board's interest in calming traffic and allowing for a safe, effective flow, not only for just vehicles, but also for bicyclists and pedestrians. And I would say that, it is very tight down there, but, that's what it looks like in the middle of a city, in the middle of think of a, Beacon Hill or the Fenway area. A lot happens, but if it's engineered correctly and built correctly, a lot can happen very safely and quietly and calmly and with a degree of attraction. So I think this can become that kind of thing, so I thank you for your hard work there.
Before a motion is made, I just want to explain it. If it's the will of council to remove this landscape wall and put in its place a curb line and either an esplanade and sidewalk on the backside, my expectations would be that curb line follows pretty similar to where that edge of the wall is today. Again, to maintain consistent lane widths. It would be accommodated slightly here for a conventional tip down and probably there would be a crosswalk across this opening now. I think we'd have to provide that.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure, is that?
I agree. I agree with the thinking and the comment that you don't want a 22-foot road turning into a 26-foot wide road. That could create further issues, but it doesn't escape me that removing that wall and in its place putting an esplanade or a sidewalk will facilitate additional pedestrian movement, and even, I know bicycles aren't supposed to, at least they can walk bicycles on the sidewalk, right? So,
But again, we estimate this to be about a 60-foot stretch, and it would end at the, I guess I'll say the property line.
Right.
Clearly, it could be part of a sidewalk system yet to be built in the future.
Right. Councilor Babon, I think you had a comment.
Yeah, just a couple of closing. What type of traffic calming device Public Works and the town manager decide I'm comfortable with? Having Councilor Roy tell us that what we implemented down on Maple Ave, which is, what was described, is working, I would be happy with, as long as there's something, because I can just see that becoming a problem. The other question I had was, I want to phrase this way. I'm assuming that at each one of the three public sessions in which citizens got to speak about the design, that they were clearly in opposition to the encroachment and to remove that. And you, having been at all of those meetings, I was wondering why this design still has that on its plan if the citizens really spoke out and said we didn't want it at those sessions.
I distinctly recall it coming up and being a focal point of the second one. That was the last one at the Pine Point Firehouse. A number of us stayed after the meeting. I think a number of councilors stayed as part of that conversation. And it was really then that I agreed that we really need some professional advice. And so Bill Bray was engaged following that meeting. And really it remains there based on his recommendation that something needs to be there. And mindful of cost, I didn't, nor did the task force, I don't think, thought it was important enough to spend $3,000 for a sidewalk for 60 feet. That's really the rationale.
That's all I think. The last part of I was thinking about Councilor Wood's comments regarding the private covenants versus the other covenants regarding the development. I think that we actually gain more out of this particular project and acceptance if we do the due diligence and make sure that we do the due diligence going forward around those covenants, and making sure that the design concept long-term stays within the range of what was expected, rather than simply removing an encroachment piece that's been there for 37 years.
Okay, we already have a motion and a second. Do we need Tom to do an amendment about the encroachment, or do you have the will of the council?
I certainly have the will if you want to
Would you
formalize it
prefer us to
further.
have
I
an
would-
amendment?
Yes.
I think so.
Would someone like to propose an amendment?
I'll
Councilor
propose an
Wood.
amendment. Propose an amendment to order number 10-35, that the plan before us be accepted with the exception that the stone wall be removed and in its place a curb and/or sidewalk and/or esplanade be installed to arrive at the same reasons that the stone wall was considered to remain in place in the first place. And also that a tactile, or whatever word I'm not able to come up with right now, for the crosswalks be considered to further in traffic calming.
Second.
Discussion? Councilor DeAndrea?
Yeah, I just wonder if we should, sort of feels to me that there's probably more agreement on the tactile crosswalks than there may be for the Esplanade. Maybe we should split the amendment in two for those? Just a thought.
Well, we can,
I think we could do that.
So your motion is to divide the question?
yes.
I would second the motion.
Okay, so now we have two motions.
No, you divided the question, so you're doing them in the order in which they were presented.
We will take the
didn't know-
tactile cross,
Well, I didn't know I made a motion.
well, you did, and you got a second.
You have to vote on it.
Okay, so what's before us now?
That's right, so now we're going to, would you put, all those in favor of dividing the question? Thank you, none opposed. So I will take the tactile crosswalks first. Any discussion on the tactile crosswalks? You'll notice I didn't call them sidewalks. Okay, seeing no further discussion?
Could I just ask clarification? You said, I thought I heard explore. Is this a directive that you wish us to
Yeah.
include it? Okay.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to include tactile crosswalks in this project, signify by raising your hand. Okay, that was unanimous. And now we are going to consider removing the encroachment. So all those in favor of removing the encroachment, please raise your hand.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Just to make sure. Well, no, it needs to be clear. We're not just removing the encroachment, you're replacing it with something else.
correct.
So
Removing
it
the,
needs to be clear that you're,
we're removing the encroachment
Right.
and
Okay.
substituting it with either a curb, a sidewalk, or an esplanade,
That
or
I
a
just wanna make sure-
combination of all.
that
Okay.
accomplishes the
Sorry.
safety concerns of the Bill Bray.
Yes, of the traffic engineer. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? One. Mr. Babine. Okay, now for the main motion. Any further discussion on the main motion? All those in favor? Is unanimous. Thank
You're
you.
Order
Now
number-
we're going to move to our order that we are added the evening.
Order number 10-38 is act on the request from the town manager to transfer and appropriate the sum of $136,000 from the Public Works Transportational Capital Improvement Projects in fiscal year 2008, bonded for the Bronturd project as follows. King Street Drainage and Street Reconstruction Project for $41,000, and B, Pine Point Beach Access Project for $95,000.
Okay, Mr. Hall, this is a new item, so I'm going to leave this for you to discuss.
yes, thank you very much. Clearly, I had expectations, perhaps too hopeful expectations, that the project that you see here, most of it's depicted here, this is the improvement project for a fairly small part of Pine Point Road into King Street. We had every indication, based on favorable bidding and our own cost estimates, that we'd actually come in under budget. Just by way of history, you may recall, we are in receipt of a $85,000 CDBG grant through Cumberland County, and the other $85,000 was funded through a capital improvement project last fiscal year. So we have a project budget of $170. We've spent monies for engineering and related services, survey work, and so on. We have a construction budget of just over $150,000 right now. The bids were let. We had 7 bidders. We opened them last Thursday, and unfortunately, the low bid, if I can find it here, was well over $200,000 at any rate. Actually, $213,000. Mike Shaw and Jim Wendell was involved, worked with the apparent low bidder to try to work down those numbers, remove some items. And I provided in your packet behind this order some of those cost breakdowns for you. Some of what you just did will add cost, and we ought to make sure we isolate those costs and include them to make sure adequate funding is provided. But back to the order. With the revelation that there was no extra money available, and I was very careful throughout this whole process to not guarantee that there would be some left, but that I was encouraged by counselors to continue with this process, to come up with at least a plan, and ideally to dovetail it with other work, and provide improved safe beach access for this upcoming season. And so with this revelation, actually Mike was able to help me identify some other public works-related funds that no longer are needed. And there were two projects, but we'll focus on the first, passed in fiscal year 2008, related to the reconstruction of the lower portion of Broad Turn Road. Essentially that portion from the overpass over the turnpike back down to Route 1. As I understand the chronology, that approval was gained. Chamberlain Homes was in the process of beginning first phase of Dunstan Crossing, and there was the wisdom of the staff at the time was let their work get done before we do anything, and so we did. And then Mike followed that up with basically a heavy overlay, an 1.5 or 2-inch overlay of that section of road. And for any of you that travel it today, I happen to live on it, so I see it quite a bit. It's held up very well, and so Mike is, I think, graciously acknowledged that we really don't need to do any major reconstruction, that road's in good shape. So consequently, there is a $219,000 CIP project, again approved in fiscal year 2008. The monies have actually been bonded. We had all intentions of doing the work until we realized that we didn't have to. I stand before you and suggest that that is money, again, that doesn't have a purpose for its original intended purpose, and therefore is available for other purposes. And it's within your power to redirect those funds if you wish. What I'm requesting is twofold. One, as I mentioned earlier, the bids for the road work, that's the road work within the right-of-way, as I mentioned, exceeded the available budget. And I have to try to do some quick math here, but without the changes you just directed, we need about $41,000 to complete the project and remain true to the scope. And I think Council Rancourt will agree, any deviation, certainly major deviation from that scope of work, I think would be a huge disservice to the process. There was a lot of time, a lot of effort put into that. Not everyone agreed along the way, but they agreed on the final plan, and it would be tragic to deviate from that. So that $41,000 will be increased somewhat based on these tactile crosswalks, and I'm going to ask Mike to speak directly to that. The other component, there are sufficient funds to fund the entirety of the beach access plan, which is the subject of your last vote. Again, there'll be a slight increase from what I have suggested here in the order of $3,000 to accommodate that removal and replacement with a new curb and sidewalk. So that's a fairly quick introduction, and I'm pleased to backtrack and answer any questions on the source of funds and how to go about this.
Okay. Could I have anybody from the audience who'd like to speak on this? Please come right up. Got to go right up to the microphone.
Thought he was going to get
I just have one question. Who's going to pay to have the stone wall removed?
I don't know that yet. We don't know that.
You don't know that yet?
No.
Will you let us know when it happens?
We certainly will.
Thank you.
I think the citizens should assume that we're paying for it until told otherwise.
Right. We need to, that'll be part of the process.
Okay.
Mr. Bell, did you want to speak? You had asked me before.
The only thing Bruce Bell, 13 West Beach Ridge Road, the only thing I wanted to touch base on was what Council Wood was talking about, and that is speed bumps, humps, or tables. Very familiar, Stevens Avenue is one of my projects. One of the things you're going to find with those kind of applications is, on a narrow street, they become very ineffective because you have to taper off that, whatever the structure is, at least a foot clearance from your curb lines. Where you got 11-foot street, what's going to happen is people are going to be driving around, and they're actually physically going to be driving not over the hump with two wheels, they're going to be driving next to the curb, and it's going to become very ineffective. Narrow streets, I wouldn't try them on. If you wanted to put them on a street where parking was allowed on each side and there was width, and there was definite line delineating the side for traffic, they have some capabilities of controlling traffic. They're not perfect. By any means, they're not perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, hi there. I'm Stan Laurie from 21 East Grand Avenue. I think with the amendments that you've made tonight, you have a terrific plan, and I would encourage you to fund it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. Then I'm now going to entertain a motion.
I'd move approval of order number 10-38 as presented.
And
Second.
okay. The manager would like to speak?
Well, I just want to inform you, what I expect will be the budget implication of the two changes you just made. First, regarding the King Street Drainage and Street Reconstruction Project, the tactile crosswalks, if you will be represented in that cost. Make sure I'm looking at this correctly. I beg your pardon, I'm trying to do this on the fly.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe that number should be $48,000, and that will provide sufficient funding for that project.
And then the Pine Point beach exit would be 98,000.
Yes.
Say again, the last.
98.
I think I have that
3,000.
reversed.
So we need an amendment.
Right.
Hold on.
So I would move to amend the motion that we increase the King Street Drainage and Street Reconstruction Project from $41,000 to $48,000, and amend the Pine Point Beach Access Project from $95,000 to $98,000.
Is there a second to that amendment?
I'll second and ask for just clarification. So the original motion would appropriate the sum of $146,000 from that source,
136,000.
146.
9 and 4 is 13.
So actually, so if I can, I'm sorry, friendly amendment, that number should have been increased to 146 as well.
Correct.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I was going from the old to the new.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Mike, you're right.
You want to restate it or withdraw it, just so it's clear?
Yeah, just move approval that the sum of $146,000 be appropriated with $48,000 for the King Street Drainage and Street Reconstruction Project, $98,000 for the Pine Point Beach Access Project.
And you're seconding that again?
Sure, second.
Thank you. Discussion of the amendment. Councilor Babine.
So the question I have is, where's that $10,000 going to come from? Because right now, you've only identified $136,000 from the sources that you've provided us.
Sure. Well, I think it's in your packet, I believe it is. It should be. The bond order, it's the simplest thing to show you the total project. There's a total of $219,500.
Yep.
So there's adequate funds to fund that request. I do just want a point of clarification for you. From a practical matter, though this provides funding to complete the entirety of the beach access plan that was presented this evening as amended, from a practical point of view, as is mentioned earlier, we would break it into two phases. First phase being the hardscape, the path itself, and the fence. We expect we can accomplish that.
And the drop-off.
And the drop-off, I beg your pardon. That will be accomplished before Memorial Day. We'll come back and do the other work sometime either fall or early spring, but in any event, certainly ready for next year. Okay.
The discussion, Councilor DeAndrea.
So, I'm confused. The $219,000 from the Broad Turn project, where, sort of unrelated, but there'll be some of that money left over, $73,000. Where do you foresee that money going?
I have no intended use. Frankly, this has given me the notion that I ought to look at old CIP projects and see if they still make sense and there's any lingering monies. I might recall for you that the school board actually did that earlier this year when they were confronted with a huge shortfall back first of the year. They came up with over $400,000 of just these sorts of old CIP monies that don't serve a purpose any longer, and they used it to pay their debt service, which helped their operating budget this year. You might question that tactic, but my simple point is there are undoubtedly other monies similarly situated. I see Ruth here. Ruth and I will do that evaluation and come back to you with, the list of projects and monies. At this point, I have no intended use, and it would require council action to redirect those monies.
Council Wood. Council Bayside.
I just have a quick question, and I'm sorry if this is potentially uncomfortable, but I'm thinking there's more than a few people at home that are asking this question. Are we limited to what, I mean, this isn't free, obviously. It's not like we found it in the couch.
Right.
So, I mean, in the economic times that we're in, I fully embrace funding this project. However, we have these monies that have already been bonded. I mean, is it as simple as we can take those monies and do anything we want with them? Can we cut, 20,000 checks with it? Likely not. So I just think that the public would like to hear what we're limited in doing with those monies, since they have been bonded.
Well, I think the restrictions are more self-imposed. Certainly, I lack the authorization to redirect and use those monies for something other than the intended purpose, and that's exactly why I'm here asking for your approval. I see Ruth raising her hand. I'm not aware that necessarily the folks that own those bonds would care what we used it for, so long as we pay it back with the interest we agreed to is the primary feature. Having said that, that's an area of the law and high finance that I'm not an expert in, so there may be issues there. Clearly, the fact that we've bonded this money and it's here, I think it's important for us to expend that. We do run the risk of some of the IRS regulations. You can't bond money and then not use it and earn interest on that. There's very strict regulations around that. So this is a bit of a revelation, and I assure you I'm going to look at seeing what other monies are in a similar situation.
And thank you. And real quick, did we not, or did you not also present a budget to us that showed, not knowing that we were going to be in a position that we're in now to fund, didn't we have monies already planned in the budget?
Yes.
To start this project?
Yes, exactly. Thank you for recalling that for me. The original intention was that there may be some money left over from the King Street project. We know that's not true, but I didn't ever expect that there'd be enough to complete the entire beach access plan. So I put in the budget a CIP project, which the Finance Committee's already at least begun to talk about. Not knowing what the total budget was, I think it has $35,000 in it. But you're correct, there is currently a CIP project requesting funding of $35,000 that could be removed from next year's budget in light of what you're considering right now.
Okay. Well, I would suggest it is removed then.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you, sir.
Council Babine.
Couple of things. I'm going back to the initial advice that I thought was great, because I really just wanted to prove this and say, let's get this fixed, get it done now, and let's move on. So the change in the amendment isn't unreasonable. Personally, I think that if we wanted to, the landscaping at $20,000 seems a little excessive to me, based upon the area, and that you probably could realize some savings in there to cover that within the existing budget. Just so that you know, the math doesn't necessarily add up. It's off by a couple $1,000s based on the Phase 1 cost plus the Phase 2 cost, so I don't know, the total cost is actually greater than those two numbers, so there's some math issues there, but it's minor in comparison to the issue. I just, to me, $10,000, even though every penny counts and the citizens do care about every penny we spend, this is an issue that I think deserves the consideration. I did want to point out that two things. One is, a citizen asked who was going to pay for the $3,000. Obviously, by the amendment, we're suggesting the citizens pay for that. I'm actually okay with that, and the reason is because based upon a 37-year-old picture that shows that encroachment has been there forever, I have no evidence to say maybe the town didn't actually either pay for it, support it, or somehow condoned it back when it was originally structured. So for us to cover the $3,000, I'm okay with that, to allow this to come to a completion. The other thing is that, just for clarification, and I know people will correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure if that's an indication.
Just to shut you off, Sean. I think the gentleman's time. Gentleman's time's
Shut
expired.
Sean off button, yeah. But I just wanted, I believe, having looked at the town charter before, I believe the town charter actually says that, that the town council should use any unspent bonded funds to pay down debt, in the long term, I believe, is what it says. The focus word is should versus shall. So I do agree that the council generally has some discretion on how to take care of it, and I think that, you know, if we were spending long-term debt on some type of short-term items such as, you know, funding operations, then I think that's obviously a violation of the intent of the charter, but funding an additional long-term project like this, I think, is definitely within the well intent of both the charter and the bond instrument that was issued, so I'm actually okay with what was presented. I think if anything, this brings it to completeness. So.
Anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Holbrook.
I'm not even sure where we're at this point, but I was looking at this, I'd like to see this split into two separate things, because I'm having, that King Street drainage is one portion and Pine Point Beach Access Project is another portion, because I have a little heartburn with the fact that we're going, my problem with this is spending bond money on things like plants. And I just don't see that portion of the project. I mean, I understand spending the bond money on, you know, the benches or the work, that, you know, the structural parts that go into this, but to spend it on bark mulch and shrubs, and that's bonded money we're paying interest on that could die next year. So I was like to see it split.
Are you asking for a motion to split? Is there a second?
Split what?
Split
Divide the question.
the question for the beach access, no, yeah, the beach
Yes.
access part and the road part, the additional money.
For purposes of discussion, I'd be happy
In
to
other words,
second
the
it.
98 and the 48, split those two. John, you
For
seconded?
purposes of discussion, I would
Okay,
second the motion.
discussion on splitting the motion.
I'll begin.
Go ahead, Mike.
I understand that. I mean, that makes some sense, but I don't know, it's an integral part of the whole project, so I'm not sure what, I mean, if it was the larger percentage of the monies were represented by plantings or fragile type of, materials, et cetera, that need replacement, every 2, 3, 6 years, whatever, I would tend to agree with you, but that's a small percentage of the breakdown, as far as I can see.
It's $20,000.
Yes, I said percentage. I didn't say $20,000 is a small amount of money. It's a small percentage of the total project. The total project is approximately 106,000, 108,000. And anything that we might have added, well, I guess that wouldn't be part of this, so it's 20%. So actually, if anything, maybe, are we prepared to look at each breakdown of this project and then see which might belong in a bonded approach as opposed to something that should be in an operating budget? I'm not sure that that's the way to go either. Although I respect the council's interest in us discussing it, I would support the project as it's been presented.
Councilor Roy.
I think we've had this discussion about what should be bonded and what shouldn't be bonded. The point here is that this money already has been bonded. But I understand Council Holbrook's point, and I think when we're talking about new bonding down the road, we need to really look at those items. But this money's already out there, it's already been bonded. I think moot point at this time.
Councilor,
I appreciate the money's already bonded, but my thought was to use, this was originally, I believe, for Broad Turn Road. there are many roads in town. I mean, any bond money, it should, as far as I'm concerned, I'm looking at it saying, if you're gonna tell me plants, or could we possibly put a few more patches in some of our more atrocious roads, to send the bond money that way I just, like, I said, valued use of plants versus, yes, I understand it's already bought and we gotta use it, but use it to do something else other than buy plants.
Okay, I think we've heard the argument. I'm going to call the question as to a vote in favor of splitting the question. All those in favor? 2, all those opposed? Okay, the motion fails. We're back to the to the amended, are we at the amended?
Main motion.
We're at the amended motion
Amended.
for $146,000. Any further discussion on the amended motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? None. Okay, and now, all those in favor of the main motion as amended? We are done with this. Yes. Thank you all. I know you're all thrilled that I'm back from Florida, and with six items, we're having one of the longest meetings you guys have had in a long time.
Madam Chair, I would ask if we could have a
5-minute
recess
break, please.
and be back at
Go.
9:55.
Yeah, take a break.
Yes.
recall.
The current contract agreement with the police extends through June 30th, 2011, so there's a third year that commences July 1st. Given our challenges last year and again this year, I again went to the union, requested some concession, perhaps by way of history, but I think it's important. Year 2 of their contract guaranteed them a 3% increase. They thankfully gave that up in the current fiscal year, and we're enjoying that benefit in the current budget. The way the contract was written, their actual dollar wage is written in the contract. So effectively, July 1st, the contract will provide them a 6% salary increase. With that in hand, or with that knowledge, we went to them and asked if there's any way we can find some short-term savings, and they graciously agreed to sit with us and work with us. And what's before you is a fairly simple modification of the collective bargaining agreement, which effectively reduces our cost for next fiscal year to 3%. I will note, though, it does have the other 3% taking effect the last day of the contract. And so there are financial consequences going forward. I assure you, we went through any number of approaches, and frankly, the town didn't have much leverage in the matter. So I was appreciative that they were willing to forego 3% for themselves, but they also wanted to guarantee that going forward. The other important feature I should note is they've asked for no layoff clause for simply that third year, so next fiscal year, no layoff clause. And I feel comfortable offering that to you and suggesting that we approve it. As you may recall, at least those attending the Finance Committee meeting when the police budget was proposed, we do have savings that we're enjoying within the police department. They're already doing with less staff. One of the staff members is actually up at the Criminal Justice Academy for a 2-year appointment, and we're not replacing that position. That's providing some savings in next year's budget. So I stand before you tonight and first thank the police union for willing to meet and helping us with our challenge, and requesting that you ratify this contract change.
Could I have a motion, please? Is there any comment? Oh, is there any comment on this? I'm sorry. Is there any comment on this? Seeing none, could I have a motion, please?
I would move approval of order number 1036.
Second.
Discussion. Councilor Babine.
So, two questions I have. Based upon the language that's set forth, if we don't approve this, because nowhere in this agreement that is signed does it say it's subject to the town council's approval. So, and I'm not, even though have a degree in labor relations, if we don't approve this, is this null and void?
Correct.
Okay. The second question I have is that, based on item number 2, it says the town agrees to ensure that no police officer will be subject to a layoff during contract year 3, which is July 1 of 2010 to 2011. I'm not sure how I can see, I don't see how I can sit here and say that I agree with that from a contract negotiating point, and not having had a full discussion of our current budget. I'm not suggesting by any means that I want to lay off any employee, but to commit to this, you're committing in essence to no adjustments within the town's police staff, in which we may have to meet some of the optimistic goals set by council comments regarding reaching a 3% budget. So I don't want to see, based on that alone, I'm not comfortable in agreeing to this, and I don't want it to be viewed that I'm anti our police department, but I don't think it's realistic based upon the timing of our current budget cycle.
If I could just respond to those
Absolutely.
points, if you don't mind. I'm fully appreciative of that concern. What it does provide us is the certainty in budget that we have 3% salary increase rather than 6% sooner than later. In terms of your budget process, I think that's worth something. Secondly, from past experience, particularly with police officers, there are minimum shifts. They're unlike many other municipal employees where you can simply do more with less. You'll see the cost probably show its ugly face in overtime as opposed to full-time. So, from my perspective, with that experience and knowledge, cuts in the police department, I think, will be hard to come by if you're looking for dollar savings.
Council Roy?
Yeah, I guess I would disagree with Councilor Babine on this. I think that the police union has been very gracious, not only to offer this year, but the previous years also being willing to forego. And I think that's very little to ask. And in light of the increased need for police because of break-ins and those kinds of things that are occurring, I would find it hard to see police layoffs at this point in time. With the economy being such as it is, it's increasing their demand.
Anybody else? Council Wood?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank the police department again for helping the town through this difficult economic period like they did last year. And I know Council Babine echoes those thoughts. But I do agree that having a no layoff clause is somewhat difficult to wrap our arms around when the approval of the budget is still forward of today's date, albeit only maybe a month. Would it, for purpose of discussion, would it be more comfortable to consider this subject to approval of the municipal budget or the police department budget, however you might want to phrase it? Because let's say a couple weeks from now, this council makes radical changes in the townwide budget that has an effect to the police department that would make it unyielding to honor number 2.
I think if that's the wish of council, I would suggest you not take action. You take it up later when you have a greater degree of comfort and certainty. Again, the downside of that is that I think I will encourage the Finance Committee to include an extra $60,000 or so in the police payroll line because we're contractually obligated for 6%. That's the value of dealing with this at this juncture. We may be talking about a matter of weeks.
Right.
In terms of the Finance Committee working through its next meeting. For what it's worth, I am working with the dispatch union in a similar fashion, and we're actively engaged with the fire department as well. So those are all coming together nicely and will be done within the next 2 to 3 weeks, I anticipate.
I'm just sensitive to having one's hands tied when you might find yourself, having to look in areas you might not look at. I too would not foresee reducing the police staff, and I wouldn't be an advocate of that. But I'm just wondering if there was a way tonight to approve this with maybe some caveat that says upon passage of the budget.
With all due respect, I think that would really violate the spirit of this and speak directly to, they've agreed to this on these terms. If you condition them somehow, that's a different deal. So as opposed to doing that, I think the better alternative would be to table the matter and take it up when you have a greater degree of certainty.
Council Babine? Or will you finish, Council Wood?
Well, my only remaining question at this point would be that if we did table it, in your opinion, Tom, would that subject their generosity to maybe something less?
I certainly can't answer that for them. They've been gracious. They have under no legal obligation to even meet with us, much less consider concessions. So for that, I'm thankful. I suspect that same philosophy will continue. We have very good labor relations, and I think they're not going to stop talking to us. But at the end of the day, they have bargained in good faith for these sets of benefits and wages, and frankly, town has no leverage to take them away from them. We have nothing to offer in return.
Okay, well, that being said then, and I'm hearing you say that the budget that's before us tonight reflects the spirit of what is
It includes 3% for police currently. We would have to add money in to meet another contractual obligation if that's the way it goes.
Well, that being said, then I support the order as written tonight.
Any other comments? Council Babine, sorry.
Yeah, so, this is really hard because this is a matter, for me, it's a matter of, management principles and not necessarily of individual, opinion in the sense that, one is, I am totally appreciative of the position that firemen, the police officers, EMS, and everyone has taken, Public Works, on the municipal side, around their contract. What I'm disagreeing about is how we negotiate a contract necessarily, and the reason is that this simply, it does not address the realization that at some point that we have to have with our employees, and that is that you're not going to get, or at least in my opinion, 6% raise in 1 year to meet the contract that we have now. We can't fiscally afford that. This allows us to project that out 1 more year. Second is that by saying that that they will not be subject to a layoff provision ties our hands completely, not knowing, and what that does is, in essence, that forces us to look at any type of additional reductions at the school budget. And we should be able to do that without our hands tied, and without our employees telling us, this is what I want. We have to be able to do that unbiasedly. This is biased. This tells us that we have to, in essence, keep every employee on the municipal side, at least within the police department, and not look at that. And the fact is that given the economic reality, that's not fair to the town. That doesn't mean I don't appreciate what they've done, and in fact, if those officers that I'm close with, I have said, my goal and the council's goal is, we will minimize the number of people that we will have to let go from the town, if not avoid layoffs completely, and I totally support that. So my objection is from a negotiating standpoint and from a contract, management contract perspective, I don't think this is in the best interest of the town right now, given what we have. Especially if we're all acknowledging that next year is going to be even worse.
Any other comments, Council DeAndrea?
Yeah, I'll step out on the limb. Wow, this is a tough one. Again, this being my very first year on the Finance Committee and having to deal with any kind of contracts and having a deep appreciation for what our public safety folks do for this town. I am really torn about this as well, really torn, and having now spent some real solid time with the Finance Committee and outside of the Finance Committee, really poring over the budget, this is really tough. I'm not, at this moment, and when I walked in here, wasn't sure how I would vote for this, and I'm still not sure. And I tend to have to agree with Councilor Babine, and that doesn't happen very often.
Alert the
But
press.
I sort of also, and again, I'm going to echo what he said about my appreciation for the work that's done and for the fact that they've stepped forward voluntarily, that I also feel that our hands are sort of tied with this. So I'd love to hear other counselors' opinions about this. Again, I think I would support tabling it, but I would worry about what that could do for the current negotiations that we have now.
Councilor Wood again? Councilor Holbrook afterwards.
What's very true, though, is that this concession doesn't have to be here. They are fully and legally bound, and we're obligated to fulfill the contract as it was originally negotiated. So this is an accommodation, I believe, more on their part than on our part, should we embrace this and vote in favor of it. I heard the town manager say that that 3% represents about $60,000,
I believe so.
which would roughly represent maybe 1.5 police officers.
1 3/4. 1 1/4.
Whatever.
More than that.
it's hard for me to imagine that we're gonna be in a situation in this fiscal year that is gonna have us looking at reducing the police force by an officer.
Well, I think you'd actually double the magnitude, because you're talking about adding 60 back into the budget, and if you think you have to cut from where it is, you're probably looking at cutting 2 or more officers. If my logic makes sense to you.
So, it is a little unusual, but I think what they do for us is unusual. And I think their accommodation for us, not just this year, but last year, is quite unusual. And I think that for that, I'm comfortable moving forward with this as it's written. I do respect the fact that it's not conventional, but these aren't conventional times, and their sacrifice has been anything but conventional. So I support this order, and I hope the council will see to support it also.
Council Holbrook?
I would support a motion to table it until after the Finance Committee meets and has a little better idea of their current situations. My question, though, I did have a question as to the effect of, at one point, there was some conversation about they were wanting to add another shift or more officers. So I guess I was wondering if how that would affect in this upcoming year. Is that something that was coming up in the near future? If we can't lay anybody off, we certainly don't also want to be in a position where we're adding more people too. So I don't know how that would affect.
There is an approved staffing plan that calls for bringing on additional officers. We've already deviated. Frankly, we've never implemented it. Those needs don't go away, and I think if Chief Moulton was here, he'd tell you that, frankly, the current economic times require more demands on their service, if anything. I guess to cut right at the chase, I can't sit here and guarantee that I can deliver this same agreement down the road. I think they'll be gracious and meet with us. It may well that I can, but I can't give you that guarantee. And again, I apologize for the timing, but for me, the budget certainty that it affords in terms of $60,000 in savings is worth that concession, that trade-off of no layoff promise.
Council Roy?
Yeah, and I go back to the comment of the cliche of certainly in good faith, and I think the manager, in good faith, sat with them, and they were in good faith willing to negotiate, and this is the results of the negotiation. And I think to delay it or to, would jeopardize any further negotiations perhaps, even though they've been gracious for 2 years. So I would support it.
Council Baber?
Boy, this really bites. I was thinking of a different word that went with this, but this really bites.
Okay, we get the picture.
Yeah. I guess I was, as Councilor Roy was talking, I was thinking the same perspective, and that is I do believe that our manager negotiated in good faith, and as well as did the Police Benevolent Association. So I would be inclined, I would be happy to actually vote in favor of the contract. However, I hope that we use this as a lesson in the next phase, and the reason is because at some point, if these provisions came along with the notion that the third year of the contract, the pay raises that were scheduled would be renegotiated, and we benefited from that renegotiation. As I stated before, it's very difficult. I cannot see us paying 6% in any given year. I can't see paying more than 3% in any given year, let alone maybe 3% in any given year. But we don't get any of that benefit from here. We're losing the entire leverage position, and I disagree from a negotiating standpoint. I think that we do have leverage when we sit down with them, because the fact is that if we don't fund the pay increases, then we can go back to the negotiations after the budget has been approved and say, this is what the town council has approved. You can either fund all the existing positions, or you decide and tell us, do you want to fund your pay increases and lose some of your staff? There's different ways that you can go about doing that. It's not probably the best negotiation to sit here and talk about it in public and tell our police officers how we want to negotiate, but there's different strategies that can be employed, and that's really, I guess, my underlying concern, but I would be happy to vote in favor of this, because I do think that it was negotiated in good faith by the manager, given the current structure, and by no means is it a reflection upon that negotiation, so it's a lot for us to consider, and we do need to look at this. The other thing is that I hope that any contract with any of our employees, including the schools, allows for a provision that any contract can be reopened and renegotiated at any point in time, especially during economic stress. And I don't believe that our contracts allow that on either side, and it should be. So, with that, I would be happy to vote in favor of it.
I guess it's my turn. I did raise this very issue with Tom, I think yesterday or today, I can't remember, Tom, when we talked about it, yesterday, I guess. And I have shared many of the same concerns, but in talking with it and thinking about it with the manager, I realized that all the budgets are in total, and we're talking about the collective bargaining unit only, that budgets can be adjusted. There is non-union staff, employees, that if we have to do this, there still is some room to make changes if it's necessary. We all hope that it won't be, but our hands are not completely tied. We're talking about the collective bargaining, and we can always hope in any collective bargaining that the other side will agree with us, but they don't have to.
That's right.
And so to ask that they always have contracts that can be openable is part of the negotiation, that's part of collective bargaining, and there's no guarantee that either side would agree to that. So it's certainly a laudable goal, but not necessarily an achievable goal. So with that, any further discussion? All those in favor of the contract? Opposed? None. Now, I think we're going to have to have a motion to suspend the rules to take action on the final item.
So moved?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor of suspending the rules to take over the last item? Thank you. And
Order number 10-37 is act to accept the changes in the right-of-way associated with the construction, with the constructed off-site improvements in Gorham Road Route 114 along the Windward subdivision.
anybody wish to speak on this? Okay, I see none. Could I have a motion, please?
Move approval of order number 10-37.
I'm sorry, Tom, I didn't ask you to explain it.
No, quite all right. I'll answer any questions, but I won't waste your time.
Basically, what it is, I talked to Tom what it is, it's the right-hand turning lane, or is it left-hand turning lane? Which way do they turn? I don't know my left from my right.
What direction?
Coming up Gorham Road, so that they can, they basically made 3 lanes going into Windward. That's what we're accepting, that actual right-of-way. It now becomes town property.
Yes, just very quickly, additional right-of-way was required to apparently accommodate that left turn lane. And unlike the conventional street acceptance, we do have to accept this additional right-of-way. It'll be part of Gorham Road, as I understand it.
Council Wood.
Of course, I'll approve, I'll support this, but I want to bring up the small item, and I know Mr. Wendell's in the audience. I was on the planning board when we, I think it was Windward Heights 2, or Windward Heights, which is essentially an extension of this neighborhood. And now, there's a guardrail on Cumberland Way that's metal. And the planning board wanted it to be wooden because it enhanced the residential feel that we wanted to convey. And I don't remember the conversation being such that it ended with it had to be metal. Now, I've heard the discussion about a metal guardrail meets certain DOT and et cetera, but what's happened down there is exactly what folks like metal guardrails fear happens, and that is it gets banged up over time, snow plows, et cetera, and it looks like heck, you know. So I'm wondering if this might be an opportunity for the town, when they go to replace that metal guardrail, that they actually take a strong look at replacing it with approved pressure-treated or wood type of facing guardrail. I know it's very much off subject, but I don't know, is it in the right-of-way that we're talking about? It's not, okay. So I apologize for taking up the council's time, but I just wanted to state that for the record because that still kind of irks me a little bit. It doesn't look very, very nice, and I think that you can have metal inserts and then wood facing that would make that approach to that neighborhood much more attractive. And I remember this room was filled with a lot of the discussion that went on with that extension of that neighborhood, and that was something that the planning board agreed to. So, anyway.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the right-of-way? Opposed? None. Thank you. Now we are moving on to non-action items, standing and special committee reports. I'll start down here with Karen DeAndrea.
The ordinance committee is beginning, at its last meeting, started discussions about parking at Higgins Beach. We're furthering those discussions by having the meager beginnings of another task force, as it were, or working group to look at, to help continue moving those discussions along. I don't have my calendar with me, so I forget when the next...
27th.
The 27th of April is our next ordinance committee meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Council Wood.
Thank you. All that Councilor DeAndrea said about ordinance is interesting discussion, attended by several folks from the public. CPIC is meeting the 16th, a week from this coming Friday, and that is all.
Council Roy. No. Thank you. Council Babine.
Yes, Shellfish, just quickly, we have our next meeting on April 13th. I believe there aren't any pending issues right now. I'll bring any forward later. The Appointments Committee met this evening prior to tonight's meeting, and we would like to post the following names for committees. For the Community Services and Recreation Advisory Board, there's one opening as a second alternate with a term to expire in 2011. The applicant is Amy Cross Sawyer. On the Energy Committee, there are 7 openings. We have received 5 applicants. We'd like to post all 5. It's Paul Aubry, Ian Engelman, Sean Flaherty, Deborah McDonough, and Rick Menking. On the Personnel Appeals Board, there's one opening, a second alternate with a term to expire in 2011. We'd like to post Amy Cross Sawyer. And on the Shellfish Conservation Committee, there is one opening as a first alternate with a term to expire in 2011. Somebody that's not new to the town, Timothy Downs, being posted.
Thank you. Anything else? Council Holbrook.
Yeah, Charter Review's going to meet on Wednesday, April 14th, 7 PM, and the Housing Alliance had to reschedule, has not yet set a date.
Thank you. Okay, Town Manager report.
I think I've spoken enough. I have no report this evening.
Nothing's happened in this town, right?
Nothing. I think you know everything I've been working on over the last few days, so.
Okay, and very quick councilor comments, if we could start with Council Holbrook.
Have a wonderful evening.
Councilor Babine.
A couple of items. One, I wanted to apologize to Mr. Green. He came up to me this evening and mentioned that he'd sent an email that I had not responded to. To my own business practices, I actually thought I had forwarded my town email as well as my town phone, giving a warning saying I don't check these, so please call me at home. So I apologize to him and anybody else who's called, so we're going to check on that to make sure. Anybody is welcome to give me a call at home or send me an email as well. If you want to, please give me a call. This is somewhat, in a way, coincidental, but at the same time, it's a nice story, even after some of my comments about the police contract. Recently, I took a trip on the road with a candidate for public office and was up in the Waldoboro area, and actually had a chance to meet the deputy warden of the Maine State Prison. And what was nice about that, even though I was there for the candidate, was that we were going around introducing, and he said, "Oh, you live in Scarborough?" He goes, "I'm trying to move to Scarborough because it seems like all your houses are selling in Scarborough, and you have a really great community." I'm like, "Yeah, of course." And he jabbed me a little bit and said, "Why and how is it that you do it?" And he said, "Your tax rate is great." And he said, "But I'm more impressed with your police department." And I've already mentioned this to our own chief, but I thought it was telling. And what it was, he wanted to compliment us on how professional our police department is, because they recently helped in the capture of an escapee from the Maine State Prison. And their quick response and due diligence really lent to the successful capture of that person very quickly. And I thought it was really nice, being somewhat away from town and getting that compliment when he heard that I was on the town council. So I really wanted to thank the police chief and the rest of the police officers for that reputation. One thing I did want to mention that was brought up, I brought it up actually. So we posted the names to several committees tonight, and I do hope that, and I don't know how we monitor this, but I believe the council recently passed as part of its rules certain attendance requirements for all of our committees. And especially on the Energy Committee, we want to make sure that everyone is willing to fully participate and attend all the meetings and contribute, because it's extremely important that they're successful in that. So I hope everyone is aware of the commitments when they do make it, and we do appreciate everything that they do. And last but not least, I would be remiss if I didn't mention finance. I think all the accolades and the thank yous have been sent out, but I do hope that based on the comments that I've heard so far, it's going to be an extremely tough task going into the next meetings with a consensus of what I think I hear is having a tax rate that's less than 3%. And while I'll do my best to determine whether that's a worthy cause, I also believe strongly that we have to look at what we're compromising as trying to reach that numerical goal. And the fact of the matter is, if you look at the historical increases that we've made in this town over the past 5 years, in reality, a 4.5% increase isn't unreasonable when it's averaged out. Even if it's averaged out over 2 years, 2.25% is not bad. And the fact is that we're conservative in those other periods so that we can absorb these type of erratic behaviors. Guarantee having a 10% increase is something that you can't absorb, but something as reasonable as what is being requested now, I think does deserve some consideration, especially given the impact that it's going to have on the school system. So I'm adverse to moving it to 3%, but I really need to hear some better arguments on why it needs to be at that number based upon the numbers that we've been given, because right now, what we're targeting is the schools. I'm going to beat around the bush and get to the bare number there, and I don't know whether or not we can get there. If we can do it through maybe reserve adjustments, I'm nervous about that, because we've all agreed next year is going to be worse. And I think if you go back and look at the tapes about the same time 1 year ago, I said, be careful of where we're going with this, and I swung the pendulum pretty hard. But I said we were going to be in a worse situation today, and I think it was Councilor Roy who jabbed me a little bit and said, be a little more optimistic. But here we're sitting, and it's pretty tough. So take some of that into consideration, and we'll work hard at getting at the number. Hopefully everyone's happy, but I know that not everybody will be happy, but we'll do our best. So, thank you.
Councilor Roy. Just a couple things. I think I've been remiss in offering out condolences in a public forum from the loss of some of our residents. One certainly being Patty Sullivan, former Councilor Richard Sullivan's mom passed away. Also Barbara Janelle, the wife of Neil Janelle, who was a major developer in Scarborough, and he just passed away a few months back. And also Jacqueline Beaudry, both she and her husband Robert passed away just recently as well, but they were friends of the public library and did a lot of philanthropic things for our public library, and I'm sad to see that loss. And lastly, Timmy Delano, who just passed away, and he coached the first championship Little League team for Scarborough, who was represented by Herman Shoe Company. So kind of, long-time people who have done a lot for the community. Secondly, certainly I've already offered apologies both by email and personally to Mr. Green for not allowing the public comment on the agenda items, but I forgot the new rule. And Believe me, I won't forget it again. And I also, as Councilor Babine said, I don't as often check the town email, but my email is jroy1@maine.rr.com, and I do check that one more often. And then budget comments, certainly, it is going to be tough, and I probably eat my words that I said last year. But I think we all need to concentrate on the essential services and programs, and I think the municipal component of the budget has done just that. I know that the school department has made a concerted effort. We've just got to, look in all the little dark corners that we can and hopefully come up with something that can work for all members of our community. And I guess last, I just want to make a comment about terminology that's used in addressing the council. To hear the term "you people" makes me feel like I'm from outer space from somewhere and I'm non-human. I think that, I try to be respectful of the citizens, and I would ask the citizens to be respectful of us, and I am not one of you people. I am a very dedicated member of this community who spends my time serving the community and do it lovingly. And I think terminology that's used to address us needs to be respectful, so I would ask that. Thank you.
Council Wood.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome back. I want to thank the council for supporting Pine Point Improvement Plan tonight. I think that it probably doesn't have to be said, but that has been something that's gone on an awful long time, a lot longer than I think most of us might even realize. So I think this is a huge step, and the fact that we're able to fund it is quite a bonus that I certainly didn't expect 24 hours ago. So I appreciate all that support. And it wasn't hard. There was a lot of good discussions over the last several months. They were emotional, but I think at the end of the day, I'm as confident, even more so today than I was a year ago, that we'll be able to look at that area in the not-too-distant future and say, you know what, it was a good move, a good project, and it served the greater good of the community, so I appreciate that. Good luck on your Finance Committee work. I know it's very difficult. I served on 1 year, but when I look back at the time that I served, I think that was almost a piece of cake compared to last year and this year. Of course, I admire the hard work that goes into that, and want to say that I will fully support your recommendation, but I hope that we can work really hard to get to something a little less than where we're at right now. And it seems to me that a 3% number might be something that the residents can embrace and support also. I'd like to think that, like Councilor Babine suggested, when you look at after a number of years of what we're asking of our citizens, I think that we can feel pretty good that we are exceptional stewards of the public's money. There's still areas that we can save. When you look at the school, what they've been faced with, and the monies that they've been able to find, what the municipal side has been able to do, not just this year, but last year, the support of the employees, indicative of a recent order that we just acted on, the sacrifice. I think it's nice to hear, but it doesn't surprise me that someone from outside of town wishes to locate in Scarborough for all the reasons that we like being here. So, thank you very much, and good luck, and we'll see you next week at the Finance Committee meeting.
Councilor DeAndrea.
Just a couple of quick things. I want to congratulate John Bliss and Stacy Brenner of Broadturn Farm once again. Last year, as you may recall, they walked away with an Eco Maine Grand Prize winner. This year, they were named the Outstanding Conservation Farm of the Year by the Cumberland County Soil and Water District. I think the work that they do out there is really quite fabulous, and I wholly support what they do in supporting the local food movement. And I also want to make sure that folks are aware that there is a big Scarborough Marsh cleanup coming up on Saturday, April the 24th, from 9 to 12. It's going to be happening in a lot of different places, so if you're interested in helping out with that effort, I would encourage you to contact Friends of Scarborough Marsh. Their email is info@scarboroughmarsh.org. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll also be very brief. I just want to say that Manager Hall, Councilor Holbrook, and I attended the grand opening of the new Walgreens on Route 1 and Gorham Road, and we now have an official new business in town, open and doing business. So welcome to Scarborough. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.